call the meeting to order at 1 p.m. on January 23rd, 2014. Stand for the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. John Wakefield. Here. Dale Peterson. Here. Ron Dahl. Here. John Steffen. Here. Troy's here. We're all here. Sam's here. Okay. First thing on the agenda is the agenda. Does anybody see any corrections to the agenda or have any additions to?
Yeah, I'll add our update on the extension agent.
Oh,
Where would you like that put?
down on the bottom.
Okay.
Okay, anything else?
I'll move to accept the agenda with additions.
Sean has moved to accept the agenda as amended. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Seconded by Dale. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, we'll move on to the minutes. You don't have the minutes done from that special meeting?
I do, but Laura wasn't here to look over them to make sure that they were okay because she's got to be the one that signs them. Sir.
Well, I was just pondering. They gotta be tremendously short, don't they?
Mm-hmm. They're done.
And what's the reason we don't have them?
Lori was up here. And I
Oh,
wasn't, so
She's
she
got
was-
them, she hasn't seen them yet, but I mean, if we looked them over,
Yep.
then we can get them in the paper. I'm just thinking about getting them published, you know, it's nice to get them published.
Timely rather than reading them 2 months after the fact.
Yep, yeah, they were, I mean, if
It's
we
gotta
approve
be
them, and then actually they can, you know,
Am I able to sign them?
what's that?
Am I able to sign them? Or does Lori have to?
You don't have to sign them, she can sign them later.
If we approve them.
When does she come back?
She comes back on Monday.
So she could sign them Monday morning and you could still get them in the paper.
Yep.
I'm just thinking about having
Mhm.
a timely rotation.
Yep,
Okay, I'll go grab them.
so I'll make a motion that we add what was the special meeting minutes dated,
Tuesday,
What was it, 13?
January.
13th.
January 13th, yeah.
January 13th to the agenda.
Been moved by John to add the January 13th special meeting minutes to the agenda. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Seconded by Dale. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
I just thought it was Tuesday that we met, but it was Monday, was it?
Yeah, Tuesday was the 13th, wasn't it?
Oh, I'm looking at the wrong year.
I'd move to approve the January 9th minutes as presented and dispense with the reading.
Been moved by John to approve the minutes to the January 9th meeting and dispense with the reading. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Seconded by Dale. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Doesn't look like there's too many bills to look at. I assume the highlighted is because it's carried over from last meeting, or it can't possibly be over budget already.
Well, they're all positive, so I'm guessing it's because we carried them.
Yeah, because it was actually the county commissioners one was another one that should have been highlighted.
Well, it all that's what I said. I don't know if it's because it was carried or if it wasn't budgeted correctly.
Yeah. And then TG Electronics was kind of in a different category with a different motion.
I think we did it in 2 motions.
Yeah, it was put on hold for another reason. Oh,
Yeah.
I wanted to see the contract.
You're right. It's in the minutes. Thank you. Should motion by Peterson to move forward with paying construction engineers $142,361.87 contingent to them coming back and finishing the EOC project? Should it be with the option of them coming back to finish the EOC project?
Well, I think when we had that discussion during the meeting, it was, we were thinking about we were going to make it contingent, but I think after the fact, I think Jamie advised us that we couldn't really make it contingent. So the letter that went to construction engineers did not, it was not, that language was not included in that letter because he didn't think that was even possible.
They were gonna get paid that 142 regardless.
Exactly. I mean, they were owed that amount, and whether or not they come back and finish it is another matter. So I don't know if we can change those minutes. I don't know what the right thing to do is.
No, probably not, but I think we should probably make a motion today that we approve the 142 being paid to construction engineers regardless of their position on finishing the courthouse. Because ultimately, we don't have a way of withholding that money anyway.
No,
So
it was never our intent.
yeah.
Even the contract's done, it's up to their discretion whether they.
Yeah.
And I can't really rescind the motion
No.
because it's already been
It's
done.
made,
so-
and I think that was partially my fault. I think I was the one that mentioned contingent. That wasn't really the way it was supposed to be. That was the wrong word.
There were really, how many options did we consider? 4 options?
Yeah.
I wonder if there shouldn't be some type of language in there just to give if people read these minutes, to say, you know, it says something about options.
There was actually 6 of them.
There was 6, yeah.
But we were only considering,
Percentage, so
Really, we narrowed it down to 2 in a hurry.
yeah.
Yeah.
Came up with numerous options to finish in the EOC center. Or you could put 6 options. Commissioner Dahl and Wakefield had gotten together and presented the numbers they came up with and 6 options to finish into EOC commissioners. Stefan joined the meeting. So you just put the number 6 in front of it.
Okay.
That's actually what it was, and we have the paperwork representing that.
Okay.
I make a motion that we amend the January 13th minutes to reflect the number of options that were presented, the number of options being 6.
I don't think you need to move to change it. You can move to approve it as amended and dispense with the reading, and then we can take that under consideration. I don't think it has to be 2 separate motions.
Okay. So how do you want to do it?
Want to take another whack at it?
No, go ahead.
Well, you could just make a motion to approve them as amended and.
Yeah, we haven't amended it yet. We have to amend it first, and it has to be amended by a majority vote of the commission. And then once it's amended, then it can be approved.
I don't think so.
Because one person can't amend it. So it takes a majority vote to amend or correct the minutes.
I think we may have done that in the past, but
Yeah.
it probably wasn't technically right for all I know.
But it could all be done at one, with amend, to approve the minutes with the following corrections.
You do that.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
It just seems cumbersome to have more than one motion.
Well, no, it can be one motion. I make a motion that we approve the January 13th special meeting minutes with the amendment offering 6 options to finishing the EOC courthouse project.
Been moved by John to approve the special meeting minutes from January 13th with 1 correction or 1 addition. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second the motion.
Seconded by Sean. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now I gotta read them.
I did.
No, I mean, nobody said dispense with the reading.
Oh,
Oh,
The Board of County Commissioners met in special session on Tuesday, January 13th, 2015 at 3:30 p.m. Chairman Olson opened the meeting and asked everyone to stand for the pledge. Chairman Olson took roll call and present were Commissioners Wakefield, Peterson, Dahl, Stefan is going to be late, and Olson. Chairman Olson opened the floor for any changes to the agenda. Motion made by Peterson, accepted as presented. To accept the agenda as presented. Seconded by Dahl. Called 3 times for discussion. All ayes, no nays. Motion carried. Chairman Olson opened the floor to appointment of water board members. There was discussion on members in the district. Motion by Wakefield to appoint Bob Brooks to a new 4-year term and appoint Barry Ronigan for the remaining 3 years for his term. Seconded by Peterson Called 3 times for discussion. With all ayes, no nays, motion carried. Chairman Olson opened the floor to the new courthouse, old courthouse. Commissioners Dahl and Wakefield had gotten together and presented the numbers they came up with and 6 options to finishing the EOC. Commissioner Stefan joined the meeting. Motion by Peterson to move forward with paying construction engineers $142,361.87 contingent on them coming back and finishing the EOC for $63,272.63. Second by Stefan. Called 3 times for discussion with a roll call vote. Wakefield aye, Peterson aye, Dahl nay, Stefan aye, Olson aye. Motion carried. Motion by Wakefield to adjourn the meeting at 4:26 p.m. and meet again in regular session on Friday, January 23rd, 2014 at 1 p.m. Seconded by Dahl. Called 3 times for discussion. All ayes, no nays. Motion carried. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you. I need a record. That was kind of an important milestone in this whole project.
Okay, Bill, Samantha,
Yes.
what's the green markers for?
There's another fault you have, that's blue to me.
Well, my pen is blue, or my pen is
Oh, my
green.
numbers are in green.
That's what I meant.
Oh, I thought you heard that.
These dues for the NDACO and the South Central Dakota Regional are all coming out of the exact same account, so it's going to be taking those over that one because there's only 9,000 in there. And then the TJ's Electronics, you guys only budgeted the 12,000, and then the bill was for 14.
I see.
So unless there is a different account that you guys think that those should come out of,
That technology is around $60,000 budget.
okay.
Yeah, I think the motion was to place the North Dakota County Commissioners on hold also.
Yep, those are all on hold.
Okay.
That's why they're put back in here.
Okay.
Did we set up a technology budget for, wasn't it around 60 grand?
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, or 70 grand, it was.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's where the TJs came out of.
should come out of.
Yep, I think so. I
Yeah.
can look into that one.
But it shouldn't be over budget, I don't think.
Well, it can't be, it's free, it's this new year. I mean, if I put it into the budget, if you got budgeted correctly, it can't be over budget.
Okay.
But neither should these others. There shouldn't be anything going over budget right now.
Mm-mm.
The money's been budgeted, it must be being taken over the wrong account.
We can look into them further. Because I know that Connie was helping me try and get these put into the system correctly so that we could get this report.
The only way that it could be is if, when we budgeted, we eliminated one of these things.
Well, but these are general fund items, and we didn't affect the general fund at that point. It could be a line item within the general fund that hasn't been funded correctly, but the overall money's there.
And it could be that we didn't know which fund we're
Right.
supposed to be out of, because I didn't anyway compare to last year to see where they were coming from.
Right.
But again, it's in the general fund, so it isn't an actual over or underfunding problem. It's a line item within the general fund that hasn't been
Right.
funded. So we're gonna look into that.
Okay.
But maybe we should put off the bills until we hear from.
South Central.
I sure can.
Want to present?
I'm Deb Campion, the Executive Director for South Central Regional Council, and Samantha had called our board chairman, Joe Nice, and told her that she had some questions regarding what services and what we provide. So I'll give you some information, and I will answer any questions that you have. I've got a copy of our most recent year's annual report. The different things. The regional council is created under joint powers. So each year we send out to each of our 9-member counties a request for them to sign the joint powers. And as part of that joint powers agreement, you also pay dues. And the dues for Griggs County are $4,249 for this year. In the Regional Council Board of Directors sets that. We haven't changed the dues at all for the last 3 years. The money that we receive for dues, we match to grants that we get to provide services in the area to be able to have like a community development block grant and a lot of other services that you see that we provide in there. We get one grant through EDA for Economic Development Administration, and that is for helping to staff the council, so we have staff. The other grant we get is through the Small Business Administration, and that is so that we have technical service to businesses through the Small Business Administration, Small Business Development Center. We've also used the funds for the last 4 years to get grants to have a specific consultant to work with our manufacturing firms for business consulting to assure that we keep and maintain our companies here and that we have jobs in all of our areas. So many of our manufacturing companies cannot afford to pay manufacturing enterprise project fees, so we're trying to do this at a point so we can have the services and keep our company here. In taking a look, you can see in this last year we had 2 major community development block grants where we had written a grant to the Governor's Fund to get the funding to help move the water well for the city of Cooperstown. And I think that was $250,000 if I remember correctly. And we also had with Hannaford, with their community business center, we removed their architectural barriers with the CDBG grant for $52,000. And take a look at that. What we do on those is each year we get funds into the regional council that members of the regional council, one from each county, score and rank to see where the funds should be going and has the highest priority. And then whenever we have a crisis, such as when the flooding of Cooperstown's water system, when they inform us, I then write to the government fund and describe the need, what it is, and then we administer the funds there. The other part that we've had through the years of taking a look at our public facilities, since 1983, we've spent more than $1.78 million of CDBG funds that come into Griggs County. So economic development, we also do gap loans and financing, so when a business needs to expand or wants to grow or wants to start and they don't have adequate equity, we have 3 different funds that we use that can match that equity, so they come up with business under 10% and we can help them to keep businesses to grow in this area, and those are all tied to job creation. And we put $2.18 million into this area. We've also in the past some housing, which we haven't done housing rehab. We're discussing that right now, and we take a look at changing the focus. But we've put nearly $300,000 in housing rehab into Griggs County. So a couple of the other things that we're working on, we are doing the Griggs County Multi-Hazard Mitigation Plan that I think a couple of you have attended some of the planning meetings for. Daniel Schwartz has been up here meeting monthly. Just to give you a little update on that. Right now we have a survey out, and it's on SurveyMonkey. We've had 117 responses to date, and we'll be getting all of that data out to know what our needs mitigation and projects we're working on. We've had all of the meetings with the jurisdictions, so we're right now putting the draft together, putting the projects into what we'll be working on. The planning committee meetings are ongoing. The 4th one here is scheduled for February 5th. Weather caused us to cancel the one in January. So they're going to go through the remainder of the summer, so we're about half done with that planning process. So we've got some special meetings with the presentation from the electrical utilities and highway superintendent, taking a look at one of the biggest issues we deal with up here from the meetings and the survey results is outage and shortage of critical materials, whether it's blocked roads, if it's lack of utilities, of getting medical care, people in here for access to getting people in and out. So what Daniel is doing, he's going to be putting all of his chapters, so we're writing everything into Dropbox, and we're going to be adding your email addresses so that you can check and see as everything is being updated and put into the plan. So let me see. Any questions that you have?
Is this just for counties, or can individual cities be a member of this too, or?
The way it's set up right now is it's a county's resolution, the joint powers. So the county joins, and then the cities, on behalf of being within it. So they don't join individually, they are part of it by the county joining. Could we set it up different and have individual or something? It could be, but it would be a lot more paperwork and structuring. Based on North Dakota Century Code, there is a Century Code portion that forms the regional councils to provide regional planning services, coordination of services together, and then also with other part we represent the joint powers. So the other project that we're working on is some of our communities were talking about some of not being able to afford to have a building inspector. And if you don't have a building inspector, you can't have any kind of building codes because if you don't have anyone to make sure they're implemented, you put at risk the rest of your ordinances. So 2 years ago, the regional council voted to do a housing study to see what kind of housing needs are as the growth and everything from the west pushed out. So in that, we identified from talking to a lot of cities that not having building inspectors, they didn't have building codes. So we wrote and obtained a grant from the Bush Foundation to fund a study and to see if we can test to see if we can provide building inspector services for any jurisdiction, be it a city, a county, or a township, through the regional council or through a regional center. So we're in the process of working on that in meeting and seeing if we can figure out a way that we can provide cities with the building inspector services that they would contract for. And we're looking at that to be a self-sustaining process and service, that any application fees for that would then pay for the service. Just talking with Everett Eno, who's the regional council director up in Williston, and he was telling you this winter someone turned on their furnace in a newly built house and they had a fire in the attic, and they went up there to check. The contractor, who was from out of state, had put in cardboard and spray painted it silver to look like the metal ductwork. And so he's long gone, no building inspector to check while it was being built. And then he said another one he was telling me about was they had someone built a $350,000 house, was supposed to have a drain field. They went in, moved in, and started flushing toilets, using it, everything backed up. He didn't put in a drain field. But they're long gone. There was no one to inspect or to watch. So that's one of the things we're taking on. We did a solid waste summit last year. The regional council board had us do. What we're always trying to do is to see what we can do better as a large group of people rather than just one city or one county. So that's kind of the focus of what we're doing, is how do we bring in economic development services, sustainability, infrastructure, and different processes like that. I know the legislature's looking at, for infrastructure, how do we make sure that we continue to have good water, safe water, sewer projects in all of our communities. And so we've had some of those different meetings to see what we can do. So we're a voice also out there advocating for making sure our rural communities are sustainable.
So all these different grants that you list here, these actually, grants didn't come from the South Central Regional Council. They were just applied for. You just did the grant writing services.
They're just a conduit.
Yeah.
If you could write a grant, you could go directly to those agencies and apply for the same thing.
Right.
Most of them you could not. Well, some of them you could. The Community Development Block Grant, you need to go through the Regional Council to receive those funds. The loan funds that you see in there are loan funds that the Regional Council has obtained from writing grants to the federal government, and they are directly from the Regional Council. When you look at the economic development on the first page, all of those funds are directly through the Regional Council. So, and taking a look at that, the CDBG on page 3, those are all through the Regional Council to go to. The technical assistance, the auto burner, anyone could write for. North Dakota Energy Impact, anyone could write for. The Bush Foundation, USDA. The FEMA grants, we just assist. A lot of our entities do not have the capacity to write the grants or to do the fiscal management on it. So we provide that as a service, so that one of the things, we have numerous communities, small cities that were not writing any of these grants because they didn't have any money to the fiscal management and the fear of having to pay those funds back. So we provide that service.
But under your financial operations, you don't show any dollars being paid out for grants. So every one of these grants had to come through another source. You show $476,000 total expenses, $494,000 income, and the expenses are all salaries, travel expense, operating expense, and consulting contracts. So you can't say that any of the grants ran through the financial operations of your organization. It would have been reflective in the financial operations then.
They're restricted funds that we don't do in annual operations. So you're correct, in our audit, we are, so we have.
It doesn't really matter what we call them. Are we able to access the monies so far that you've provided to Griggs County? Could we access that on our own without paying the dues and without going through your organization?
No.
And
So when we talk about the community development block grant, no, that would have been. Could you access the hazard mitigation grants that we wrote for you and some of those? Yes, you could have. But you never provided service then in that type. But the loans, you could not. Those are restricted through the regional council, through grants that we have written. So we have one fund of $400,000, one fund of $1.2 million, and another fund of $450,000 that our regional council, we've written for and obtained loans like through USDA Rural Development to get these funds to be able to loan out. Those are restricted funds that don't go through our operations in that. But that's where you take.
you're the administrator of the funds, basically. Okay.
They're not the administrator, they're the conduit to access the funds. Because at Cheyenne Valley, we used to apply for those USDA loans through and we were the conduit at the co-op. We never used the regional council to do it.
You did Red Lake and some of those other ones, yeah, which we work with for the Red Lake thing.
So the other thing is, it's on your map here, it shows your service area. That's the counties are participating, I assume.
Those are the 9 counties. There's 8 regional councils, so there's 8 planning districts in the state of North Dakota, and we're Region 6, and those are the 9 counties that are in this planning council that are part of this joint powers agreement.
Lake Agassiz is in Fargo, and then the Red River is north, and then there's North Central and Devils Lake. I don't know the rest of them.
Are there any counties in the South Central that don't participate?
No.
Okay. And how long has Griggs County been participating?
As far back as I know, I don't think they've ever not been a participant. So.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
If Griggs County was not a member, could the city of Cooperstown have gotten them well relocate money?
Yeah, that was a FEMA deal.
No, that was not. That was community development block grant. You did not have a FEMA, there was not a FEMA plan in place that was approved at the time. That's why we went to the grant to get your FEMA plan updated and approved. Because you could have gotten for mitigation funds. So we wrote to the governor and got community development block grant funds for that. So.
Oh, I thought that was separate from the CDBG grants. That's
was not.
included in the CDBG grant.
It would have been a case of, if you could have scored a rank for what would have been, the fee would have been, there would have been a higher fee than for administration or something. But, so right now for taking a look, remember what fees you pay as a member county versus what you would pay for other. But all of those funds must go through regional council and come out through the governor. They come out through the regional council to the administrator.
Thank you.
And by being a member, are we obligated to anything other than the dues?
No.
Cities don't pay any dues?
And the monies are allocated throughout the region based on need or based on location? I mean, is each participating county allocated so many dollars every year, or is it based on need throughout in the region?
For like the CDBG, we have a committee that's the scoring and ranking, that when the money that's allocated each year, we get about $270,000, and there's one representative from each county that is on the scoring and ranking committee that scores and ranks. So all the projects that come in are then scored and ranked by that committee. So one person from each county. And that has been where it's based on the need to what is funded. The loan applications that come in, we have one member from each one of our counties on that loan funds committee. They take and review the loan application and everything and base it on whether or not to score it based on the criteria for the loan funds and take a look at that. So in reality, it's, and for coming for services for business consulting, we come out here, Dave has been contacting every one of our manufacturing firms in Griggs County. And if they want service, they access service. Any business that calls us and asks for small business development center consulting services, we respond to. So it's a bit of asking what it is. The advantage to having done the mitigation plan and working in every one of these communities, we better understand what their needs are. You know, the city of Hannaford for years has been looking for a warning siren with the fire departments and some of those. Not having a mitigation plan in place, that was one of the places we could have written to get that grant. So we take and watch for where are other federal funds, what other programs, what are the needs, and what are the times that we can match those needs and help communities access anything else that they would need.
And of course, each one of the grants has a different cost share, local cost share to it.
If you want to put a little bit of information in the for what it's worth column, the Nelson County JDA mill levy has been going almost in its entirety, I think, to the Red River Regional Council for as long as I can remember. Plus they stuck the utilities and the banks in the region when they started them to initiate a revolving loan fund within the regional council. And that amounts to 10 times what this is, and I don't think they've ever accomplished anything other than eat the mill levy through their administrative costs.
Well, I don't think
If in fact you think there's a need for this is probably well, it's most definitely a less expensive way to do it than having it done on a county by county basis. But I guess the question that you folks are going to have to answer is there a need there, and is that worth $4,000 of the taxpayers' money?
Yeah, and this is more of a, you can look at this more of it as an insurance payment than anything else. You don't know what you might need this for, as in the case of the well down there.
Right.
So from that standpoint, it probably is there probably is a need, but if it goes for 10 years and it's not used, well, the 11th year there might be a need, and as of now it doesn't look that doesn't look like it's overpriced. I imagine if the dues start going doubling every year, I imagine there'll be someone to look at it. But being new to this whole thing,
If this
I
was
personally wanted to look at it and see what this is all about.
if this was a county, we'd have a lot of economies.
Yeah. So I guess that's all the questions I have. I understand it now.
I would ask that you made a decision, because I need to apply for next year's funding through EDA administration, and I have to put that grant here in February, and so I need to identify who are my member counties. copies and everything in that grant application. I need to have my funds in place prior to that, so that's why we always send out the information in July for the project. Ask my board to have made a decision on what the dues are going to be. I send out so that you know for budgeting purposes, and then I don't send out the invoice until December, January, so that we can have the funds in place to meet the federal requirement for that grant.
Mhm.
So 10% of your administrative overhead costs are covered locally and 90% of them are federal?
Or with the two grants and different contracts that we do. So we have, mostly what we do is a lot of contract work. So in
25% is covered locally.
Oh, sure.
94 of our
Yep.
494.
Yep.
There we go.
23%, I guess.
And I said, we've tried very hard to not increase costs, I mean, to not have a dues increase in 3 years. You know, we know everything else is going up, so you know, we're doing our contracts, we're trying to do more work. So that becomes a challenge of, you're running government the exact same way, you understand what I'm doing.
Well, you were not being picked on. You got thrown in the bucket with all the other agencies that were trying to do this.
And I totally understand, and you should be asking these questions, you know, what you're doing already. I feel we bring great value for the amount that you're investing to what we bring back to the taxpayers in this area to have access and to have this.
And the measure of that is whether you can justify it. If you can justify it, then you're doing good. If not, then it's something that needs to go away. But I'm satisfied with what I see.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
I had one, this just kind of struck me when you see it put a few places, is what's the agriculture, removal of architectural barriers? What is that?
It's any of our buildings that are not handicap accessible and people cannot get into them. So either doorways or bathrooms or stairways or different things. So that is one of the things that the community development block grant funds can go to. So, and it's one of the concerns I have as we've been taking a look at where they're going to spend the money, how it's been they've had meetings around the state. And right now, we've gotten most of our community buildings have used CDBG funds to become handicap accessible, either putting in elevators or lifts or the different things, or doing different stairways or entryways into it. The other part right now that we've had a couple of our senior citizen centers where our congregate meals are served. We've got one in Calm. If you were on a walker, you couldn't fit into it. So that what they're doing there is going to take the 2 bathrooms, men and women, and make just one. So that if you come in there in a walker or a wheelchair, that you can go to the bathroom. People aren't coming there for the meals because they can't go to the bathroom. So if we want to keep people in rural areas and living by their home and by their children and people on the land, we have to have a place that they can gather and to do things. So that removal of architectural barriers is one of the things.
Okay, I was just wondering, I saw it several times on here.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Okay, anybody else have a question?
No, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the North Dakota Association of Counties sent some stuff. And when I read through there, I could not find anything about the County Commissioners Association.
They're separate.
I know, but we didn't get anything.
Oh, no, we didn't.
No,
So,
neither do they.
well, I mean, okay. All right.
Well, I think that is an easy one. I'd like to scratch the county commissioners one.
Are we on the bills now?
Or I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, these are included in here.
Yep. Well, I mean, if we ask for information and they don't even have the courtesy to send us any information about what we're paying them for, then they probably shouldn't be paid.
Well, and the fact that we've been on the county commission for over a year and I didn't even know there was a North Dakota County Commissioners Association is some indication of value.
Never have gotten an email or information.
I mean, I get the North Dakota Association of Counties. They provide training. They provide lots of stuff to us.
Right.
They provide lots of stuff to the employees. I get that. But I don't know why there's an association for every office and every, I don't, Connie, do you know why?
I know I did a lot of help of just the Treasurers Association.
I don't know, but why wouldn't that just come through the North Dakota Association of Counties? Everybody has one.
Yeah. I don't know.
Well, it's the nature of government that every faction has to have a lobbyist, and really that's all some of these are, lobbying groups for the individual functions of the county.
I think we should start a lobbying group to combine counties.
Yeah, well, should be a lobbying group for a lot of things, but right now, we need to decide which ones of these we
Okay,
don't want to be members of.
okay.
If that was a motion, I'll second that one.
Well, is that what, are we making motions or?
Well, we've talked about the South Central Regional Council. We've talked about the North Dakota County Commissioners Association. We're talking about the North Dakota Association of Counties. And I presume you've all read the information that Travis provided regarding TJ's Electronics. So in my mind, as we eliminated these in the motion at the last meeting to hold them,
Yep.
we can include them in this list of bills to pay or pull one or two out or whatever, whoever wants to make the motion.
Well, I'll make a motion for a start that we not pay the North Dakota County Commissioners Association dues and withdraw from that association. I don't believe that that's gonna do me any good.
Okay, it's been moved by John that we do not pay the dues for the North Dakota County Commissioners Association or participate in that association in 2015. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second the motion.
Seconded by Sean. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. John?
Aye.
Dale?
Aye.
Ron? Sean?
Aye.
Troy votes aye. Motion carries. Okay?
What's the North Dakota CVSOA?
Veteran Services,
Oh.
I think.
Yeah, we've got one fine with that.
And a question on Broader disposal, is that an annual fee not included in the city?
Sorry, what was that one?
The
Broaders?
2220 to Broaders,
Is that monthly or?
the annual fee or not included in garbage on the city or dumpster rental or, I don't know.
I think it might be 3 loads at $7.40 a load if I multiply it right, and that's about what they're looking for. They're multiplied.
720, 720, and 780.
That is correct.
What were they hauling?
Courthouse and shop are each $720 and social services $780.
That's yearly.
That's for each dumpster load, isn't it?
No, I don't think so.
I don't know that. I think the ones at the bank are semi-annually? Is it?
I think Brothers is annual, but I'm not sure.
That's what I'm
Okay.
guessing, I've never seen it before.
But I thought the contract was that was $750 a month to Broader for getting his trash removed out of here. Or $750 a load, I thought he was paying. But I could be wrong. I thought that's what construction engineers paid.
Well, that's different than this.
Yeah, I know it is,
Yeah.
but I thought it was just a per load charge, so I just figured.
It really doesn't say
It's not
if it's an
itemized, is it?
annual contract. I presume that it is.
I just never seen it come through the bills that I recollect.
Well,
before.
that's
That's why I was
probably
wondering
why.
if it's an annual rental rate on the dumpsters or.
The dumpsters don't cost that much.
I don't think so.
No, I think that's the annual tipping charge.
Okay.
That'd be $60 a month. Is what I believe.
Yeah, it's not
They
included.
must tip weekly.
It's not included in the city bill then.
60
would it
and
be?
65 evidently.
No, I don't think dumpsters are,
They're separate from the city charge.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought they did. But yeah, or they might even take monthly, because there's that much trash to take out.
I don't know. I picked the bag up in the parking lot, threw it in there. I don't know where it came from. I peeked in there. It looked like garbage. Okay, any other questions?
What do we get from the North Dakota Clerks Association? Clerk of court dues. Anybody see a problem with that one? Being that we're not in charge of the clerk of court?
Okay, that's what
Do you want me to go get Kelly?
Well, that's an association dues, isn't it? Yeah,
I'm assuming.
that's Clerk of Court Association.
Mm-hmm.
we're not in charge of clerk of court.
We're not in charge of the clerk of court services. State is. We've hashed out all those zillion times.
Mhm.
I know that.
Is it that one?
No.
Let's read this one.
Who's it from? I imagine the Clerk of Courts Association is where Kelly gets her training and whatever. And I don't know if the state is responsible for that or not.
Well, the last time when we let the small ones under $100 slide, so I suppose we can approve this one also. If you. But this is a little different when we're not responsible for clerk of court services, when that's a state responsibility, it's a little different, but. I'll make a motion we approve the bills as presented, less the North Dakota County Commissioners dues that we previously eliminated.
Been moved by John to approve the bills minus the North Dakota County Commissioners Association dues. Is there a second to the motion?
That's second.
Seconded by Dale. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. John?
Aye.
Dale?
Aye.
Ron?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Troy votes aye. Motion carries. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Deb.
Thanks for driving up
You're
today.
welcome.
Thank you.
Nice day for a drive.
It is. Thank goodness, because it wasn't Tuesday, right? And then the resolution just to be signed and send that back, and then we'll get that. I appreciate it very much, guys.
Yep.
Okay.
And we'll we'll stay there and be helping out for whatever we can do, so. Because they're not calling us at any time, I always tell everybody, give us a call and we'll see what we can do.
All right.
Next time, bring the county commissioners representative with you.
He did come to our meeting.
That didn't do him any good, though.
Okay, the next thing on the agenda is this vote. I didn't know Shelley or Kelly was gonna put this in here, but I just happened to, I was looking at this voucher, and as you can see, there were 10 UCC statements filed last month. And I looked at the dollar amount, and I know how much it costs to file a UCC, and it's not $30. So I just asked her how that could be that. I didn't know if there was special UCCs that were more than that. And she said that includes the searches. That's why she put that on there.
Okay.
She just added UCC searches. And if you look at some of the old vouchers, it did say that on there. So I just happened to notice it. And just for your information, and I know we've had quite a little discussion regarding those two offices and the combination of those two offices and how much manpower that it takes to staff those two offices. If you look at this revenue voucher, it can give you, it gives you exactly the amount of work that's done by the recorder's office. So if you look at these document recordings, there were 54 documents recorded that month that got document numbers, and those types of documents are, as you guys know, deeds, mortgages, release of mortgages, extension of mortgages, modifications of mortgages, those types of things. And the UCC statements, there was 10. And then the UCC searches, a lot of times the lenders do searches every 24 months on their larger lenders, and some of them are done directly at the state level and some are done at the county level, obviously. And the charge for those depends on how many inquiries there are, or how many entries there are on that, on the how many liens are on the search, I should, right? That's what I'm trying to say. So they cost more. I think the UCC is like $10 to file, and UCC searches, depending on if you get them faxed or mailed or how you get them delivered, they're $18 to $36, I think. So anyway, that's a little explanation of what that voucher means and why it was in here two meetings in a row. Okay. Okay, vacation sick leave review.
And on here, you're supposed to watch for their anniversary date. And on Janice Johnson, she had her anniversary date, and you're not supposed to carry over more than 10 days a year. And so I called on that one because she's obviously carrying over more than that. And they can go by the state regulation, which says that they can't carry over
240 hours.
Yeah, 240. So that's why they have a different policy, I guess.
When you said you're supposed to watch, you meant you, right?
Yep, me. Well, when I bring it to you guys, that's why.
I know. I'm glad you were watching though.
So is everything in order then?
Yeah,
Okay.
everything should be fine.
See, the comp time got all used up, so.
Okay. You realize if you tell us everything is in order and when it isn't in order, who's in trouble, though?
Me. Got it.
We got that on tape.
Goes back to the trust stuff.
Okay, are there any other questions? Emily, there aren't any other questions on that.
All right. This is gonna be shorter this time, right?
Ron's had 2 weeks to.
Ron's got it all figured out, and we're just gonna make a decision on how you want it, right?
Oh, Emily, I in reading the Century Code, and I know you asked me the question about the farmstead exemptions. It is not in the Century Code that I could see that we would ask a resident for a copy of their income tax statement. It says we can ask them for a signed statement.
You can. I'd have to look it up, but you can do it. In fact, the state is, well, I know this will probably cause more discussion. The state does send us an Excel spreadsheet where you take their income tax. It tells you line 7 on page 2, enter the number, like a whole formula to calculate whether they qualify or not. So unless the state is doing something that they're not, don't have.
I saw nothing. Is it
I'll
in the
look at
Century
it.
Code? Where's that?
It isn't, and that's the problem. They the state gets around it by saying that that's a requirement, but they don't give any provision to enforce it unless they enforce it on everybody that puts in for the exemption. And the Century Code doesn't make provisions for that. It just says you have to declare that you're exempt. So it's kind of a catch-22, and I went through the whole thing of them trying to demand my income tax, and needless to say, it didn't work out, and it worked out in my favor. So the fact that you cannot demand to see someone's documentation unless you make it a policy that everybody has to provide the same documentation.
And I'm fine with that.
And
But the
there's no
Century
provision
Code
in the
doesn't
Century
say
Code to do
that you
that.
can
That's
ask for
correct.
that
That's correct.
documentation.
That's correct.
You can ask for a signed statement. It says nothing about you can require them to.
You're right. Hence the reason that it's not happening anywhere in the state.
I did it in Still County,
How'd it work out?
just fine, they all did it.
They still doing it?
Huh?
They still doing it?
They aren't doing it because the 2 commissioners' farms went on the tax roll, so that's why that became a problem. But yeah, Linda was there when that happened too. And that was backed by the state at the time. I mean,
And we can do it, but if we get challenged, we will lose.
Yes, it will.
my question to him was, there are a couple that have come in that have signed the form saying, I mean, are we just taking them if they're willing to lie on the form, let it go, or do you guys want to discuss the ones in question? Is where it came up the other day.
I'm
So-
not gonna call anybody a liar.
Even if you know the truth?
It's not, it just says fill out the form. I'm not, we don't have any power to enforce anything here.
Well, there's certain things to me that are just
But
black and
you
white.
can prove it without the tax form. This particular issue that she brought to me was somebody lives there and they rent the place. They don't even own it. So if it's rental property, it doesn't qualify. I mean, that's pretty easy to prove.
It's not in his name,
You sure about that?
it's not in his name?
That they have to own it? They can be a hired man and be on it and.
That's not how they filled out the form. That's why.
A full-time farmer living in rented property, that property can become exempt for the owner of the property, and the money go back to the renter.
And it is.
Yeah, so.
And it's not a big enough issue
No.
maybe to open that can of worms.
Okay.
The Century Code is vague enough that it would be hard to do it fairly. I don't know. I think everybody should have to prove that they qualify.
Okay.
It's not fair to the rest of the people that
Right, well,
don't,
that's
that don't
the,
try to do it. I mean, it's
that's
just the way it is.
my point is I'm just trying to keep it fair for the ones that are doing honest by the form and as opposed to someone who sends it in that's.
But so how about the 99% of them that are doing it right, so then we accuse them of not being truthful by making them fill out the form?
I don't know how
think
many
that's right.
I don't know how many there are.
Well, I doubt there's very few that are claiming exemption that aren't actually exempt. And you can become exempt really easy. You only have to be under the $40,000 limit once every 3 years. It's just it's a simple matter of bookkeeping in order to meet the requirement. It isn't, so if someone's farming and they're claiming the exemption, they're exempt. I mean, you can do egg selling grain, you can do anything you want, and it's only one out of every 3 years you have to be under the 40,000, so it's not a big deal.
And it's all farm income, so.
Right, it's off farm income, yeah. So I'm not inclined to have anything to do with challenging what we have in place. I think we should just offer the exemption to everybody else in the county. City residents and everybody. Just let their house be exempt. That's a way to make it fair, isn't it? Now we don't have to worry about whether or not the farm exemption is unfair. Everybody's getting the same exemption.
Good point.
You could do that, but you can't do it in the cities. You don't. But then the real estate taxes would have to go out to compensate for it.
But we're not gonna do that anyway, so what are we talking about?
So I'll leave the forms as they come in. Just take them at what they're worth. Modifiers?
Well, on the productivity index first, I'll just go question for informational purposes. I talked to Alan Helsbeck, the NRCS in Devils Lake,
Okay, yep.
and I just asked him for their productivity indexes, and he gave me this Griggs County unit productivity index values, January 15th of 2015. And I'd just like you to look at them. They appear to be different numbers than what we...
Because they did redo the soil maps, yes. With the new soil numbers and the new updated.
Is that all the different? Is that the only reason they're different?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, like type G, I don't know, G576, they'll say it has a productivity index of 79, and I'm just throwing out numbers.
Oh, okay.
You know, we might say on our county records, we're using 95, and their productivity index for that soil type, G576, is 79 or whatever. And I just don't know.
Well, they can be adjusted, and that's very possible if you guys want to look at adjusting certain soil types. Like I was saying, we adjusted one in Steele County down to, you know, a lower productivity because it was along the riverbed. It didn't produce the 95 productivity index. So those are negotiable. Normally, you have the soil committee meeting, and one of the gentlemen had called and asked if you guys, I think, were kind of beyond that point for this year. But
Just a question on the history of it then. What Griggs County has done, they've taken the NRCS numbers and they've modified all of them. And that's
well,
why
I
they're
wouldn't
different.
say all of them. It's possible they modified some of them. I could get the productivity sheet like that was used when they originally set it up.
Okay.
And then from there, you can tweak it however you wish.
Okay.
For your county or your needs or a certain soil type, just like you're trying to lower the pasture land as opposed to.
Yeah.
It can be.
Yeah, I didn't try, and I honestly didn't try to make an analysis. It seemed like the real good soils, that Griggs County uses a higher productivity index for good soils and a lower one for poor soils. I'm not positive.
And it depends on which crop you look at, that they have the productivity for as well.
Okay. Yeah, so
Some of them are for the.
So I guess, I mean, if we do nothing, we're just saying we're gonna accept the productivity index, which is fine, because I'm sure not ready to make a recommendation today, but,
Right, and also we can still talk about that, adjusting the productivity indexes going forward and every time you guys meet, I'm fine with that. What we do need to decide is the modifier part of it. The rest of it we can still work with.
Yeah, I don't want, oh, sorry.
Only question I had on the productivities in the soils, water is a soil type. It lists water as a soil type.
802 soil type or 803?
No, it just
No,
lists water.
those are
It's G996 is water, G997 is water intermittent, and G998 is water miscellaneous. So, but we don't label that, we don't have that in on any of our
No.
maps, but we should, because water has a zero productivity. And that would solve that whole problem with sloughs and everything else.
You have a GW for water intermittent and W for water, both with the zero productivities being,
Okay, they use a G996, 997, 998.
yes.
Yeah.
Who's
And
they?
some of the codes,
NRCS.
NRCS. Like I said, some of the
But we
codes
have them here, G,
changed
W, and G,
Yeah.
or
because
W.
of the new soil mapping.
Mhm.
So some of them cross-reference over.
Okay. So which one are we using, are we gonna use? Are we gonna use
Well-
the 2015 that you have there, or are we gonna use that one there? The old one?
Well, I guess we're using the old one until we
We are,
decide to
right,
change.
and
That's fine.
that gets into discussing and getting said, well, if you guys wanna meet with them to redo the maps so we could do it all.
And I kind of think.
Well, I don't know how you would set a criteria for raising one or lowering the other. How do you, that's a real technical job, and I don't know how you would arrive at what needs to be raised, what needs to be lowered, other than, well, it appears that soil's better than the other. Well, appearance doesn't do it. It has to be based on long-term productivity indexes based on the crops that were growing there.
Yeah, and then even for the number of soils, like you could take a G117A that's supposed to be in Griggs County, but our old maps say we don't have any of that type of soil. And then I think there's others that are the opposite example. There might be a soil type that's in the Griggs County system, but according to NRCS, we don't have that soil type.
Right, that's,
And it's just outdated information, but,
But it all depends on where they kicked it, to the next lowest soil type or the next highest,
well,
as far as productivity. If you're missing one, it all depends which way it went.
yeah, and I mean, I had thought at one time of entering these numbers in there, comparing them, but I sure haven't done that.
it's a process. It would take a lot of time.
Yeah.
You cross-reference every soil and description of every single one and try to find it in the old one. I mean, it can be done, but
But you're just assigning different percentages to the overall amount of soil that Griggs County anyway. You're just breaking it up into different categories. It's not gonna affect the overall amount of taxed property in Griggs County. It's just going to affect how the percentage, the allocation of it, correct?
Yeah, and it's,
That's a little too minute, I think, I don't understand it enough to try to do that.
no, I think the issue might be later on. Do we want to update to the latest NRCS data?
Right.
And the answer is no today, but I still think we need to consider what the latest NRCS data at some point in time. That can be done down the road.
Because their data is based on productivity.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah, they have the productivity index, it's just that ours is,
Yep.
the soil types, like I said, they don't fully match anymore and stuff.
The modifiers?
The modifiers, yeah, if I could just take a minute to go through, because I tried to summarize from different counties. And quick summary is like Adams had a maximum of 25%, Barnes 40%, Benson 75%, Botner 75%, Bowman 40%, Cavalier 75%, Dickey's 20%, Eddie's 5%, another 20%, 25%, 40%. One of them said case by case basis. One of them said McLean up to 100%. And typically they are in 10% increments, it seems. And this one here is 90% and 90% for Mercer and Morton, 40% for Mount Trail, 40% for Pembina, 40% for Pierce. And then 30%, 30%.
Is this a particular modifier, or are you just?
That's the aggregate of all the modifiers.
Typically, they are different ones, yeah. Some of them are for rocks and different things. But anyway, they obviously, they vary all over the place. But I was really thinking a good compromise solution might be if we adjusted ours to use the 10% increment, but go up to a maximum of 50% for any one soil type, and also an aggregate maximum of 50% total for all the soil types. That's not too far off of what all these other guys are doing. Some are gonna be higher, some are gonna be lower, but having them up to like, I don't know. Well, this one here, yeah, it said 10% step up to 40%, 10 to 40% and 10% again. But anyway, I'd like to pose, I guess, make a motion that we do revise the modifiers so that we use a 10% increment and we allow any one modifier to go up to 50% and keep the total aggregate of all the modifiers at 50% too.
For one soil.
Per one parcel of land.
Parcel.
Yeah.
So you could have 10% rocks, 10% brand drainage, 10% accessibility, and 20% irregular fields would give you the 50%.
Yeah, not to exceed 50%.
Or you could have salinity at 50% and you'd be maxed out.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's
And none of this is mandatory, it's all up to each individual
Right.
assessor.
It just allows the assessor to go up to 50% if he's willing to do that.
Is that in line kind of with, I mean, somewhere, that sounds like somewhere in the middle
Yeah,
of,
I didn't average them, not that.
Well, it sounded like there went from 40 to 100.
Yeah, there's some at 100, some at 90, quite a few at 90.
but we're not mandating that that happens,
No.
we're just giving the assessor the tool.
We're giving them more latitude to make a larger adjustment based on the modifiers.
Yeah.
Is that a fair statement?
Yeah.
Because right now it's a maximum of what?
30.
Okay.
For
But-
each one and
Yeah,
30 total.
but you have like rocks are 10% or may go to 20.
I see
You know what I
that,
mean?
but that's the only one I see there that's explicit.
Right.
Yeah,
And you can leave it, you know,
Yeah,
basic. You don't have to do that. Those are required or stipulations you can put for your assessors.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
it
You
does.
could put salinity at 30 and leave everything else blank like it is for rocks right now, or you could put the general up to 50 for any of them.
That's what I was moving to do.
You
up
can
to 50
put in the
for-
minimum acre requirement, or you can not have
So the modifiers need to be applied in 10% increments with a maximum of 50% per modifier and a maximum of 50% aggregate modifiers.
Yep.
Does that?
Yeah, that was my motion.
So if you had irregular fields that were really rocky and had bad drainage, you could still only go to 50. Okay.
Okay.
I just want to make sure I'm on the same page as the motion presenter. So we have a motion on the table to that effect. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Seconded by Sean. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I don't want to close the discussion on modifiers as a result of this vote. There are a couple modifiers I would like to add in to this after the fact so that we don't affect this discussion. But I want to keep the discussion open to modify.
No, you can't.
Modifiers can be changed every year. You have the option to change them, but I do need to submit what Griggs County will use for
try to do
2015.
that in about 2 minutes.
Okay. Minimum acreage,
Is there-
do you want to include that yet or not?
No, I think the state legislature is working on a bill to set the minimum acreage at 5 or 10 acres.
There is,
Yeah, so I'm satisfied to let the state legislature set
just
it.
leave it.
And then
Yeah.
we'll just have to abide by whatever minimum acreage.
Otherwise, it will be superseded if it's.
Well, that's what,
Yeah.
say if we set it to an acre or 2 acres and then they set it,
Right.
change the law.
Well, if it doesn't go through and you have
No,
nothing to.
Well, I'll worry about it next year.
Okay. All right.
gets to be no gross dollar amount to worry about. If you take 50% of the tax value on 2 acres, it's like, it doesn't help anybody.
Well,
To
it helps
me.
out.
But people will do it.
$6. It's not worth the paperwork.
Buy you 2 beers. But no, so I'm not mentioning that.
Is there a minimum today?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Is it a problem?
I would recommend at least 10 acres. I mean, you guys will approve any modifications anyway, but you will get people that try to do 2 acres. And yeah, that is very time consuming and a lot of work to go through. If it's approved by you guys, 10 parcels that have 2 acres,
You know, is the state legislature going to set, or trying to set it at 5 or 10? Because it seems like we ought to just try to comply with whatever they're going to do.
I haven't read, we get updates every Friday
Yeah.
with these bills, and if anything's changed, I haven't read it yet.
That is really a separate issue.
Yeah.
Let's stay on the motion that's on the table.
Yep.
Is there any discussion on the motion regarding individual modifiers and the total aggregate maximum? Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, proceed to vote. John?
Aye.
Dale?
Aye.
Ron?
Aye.
Sean?
Okay.
Troy votes aye. Motion carries. Okay, now, having to do with modifiers, Emily, do you have any other recommendations? Which we just heard your recommendations. So.
Yes, 10 acres minimum would
Okay.
be my preference, but,
Okay,
or my recommendation.
is that 10 acres aggregate on a quarter section of land, or 10 acres contiguous within a?
Contiguous.
On any parcel.
Well, if we're doing it because $6 or $4 doesn't mean nothing to you and I, it might mean something to somebody. And I'm against, fully against basing it on what I feel or you feel is a low dollar figure, because that dollar figure might mean something to somebody that owns that land. And they should have just as much right to adjust their land as someone that owns 10,000 acres. So if we have it in there with no minimum right now, I think that's where it should stay. And if it's an inconvenience for the taxpayer, then they won't do it. We can't count it as an inconvenience for the people that administrate the county.
I look at it as if it's a cost to if the cost to the county is greater than the benefit to the taxpayer, then all the taxpayers are going to have to pay more to administer that modifier. It doesn't make economic sense for the population as a whole. If we're going to have half-acre modified property that saves 50 cents or whatever the case may be, it seems to me that the $40 that it costs to implement that isn't a good value for the taxpayers.
Where's the extra cost to the county to implement that?
Well,
unless we have to start hiring more people.
Well, and you will eventually if there's enough of it. I don't know if there would be, but
I think the very fact that it's a hassle for the taxpayer to do it is going to set the limit on how low the acreage they're willing to apply that effort to.
it depends on the taxpayer.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
okay.
I want to talk about rangeland and pasture land as a modifier.
We already have.
Even though we haven't. I think we should add both rangeland and pasture land in as a modifier. And the qualification for it will be if it's been pasture land or rangeland consecutively for the last 10 years. And I think it should be added in at a 50% modifier, the same as the rest of them. We had a discussion last time that the land, if it has a productivity index of cropland, why isn't it cropland? The market determines what the land is worth. Pasture land right now is worth a third of what cropland is worth. So the market determines the value of that land along with the productivity. So if the land isn't worth what cropland is, if you go to sell it, why are we taxing it that way? Why don't we give the landowner the ability to, if it's been in pasture or rangeland consecutively for the last 10 years, why don't we give them the ability then to have it taxed at its true value? Because its true value is what it sells for. It's ultimately its true value, and pasture land is selling for a third of what cropland is selling for.
That's not true. I mean, that's not a very in-depth market analysis, and I've seen pasture land sell for $2,000 an acre, and the quarter next to it that's being tilled, it's sold for $2,200.
Would you agree that pasture sells for less than cropland?
Very much, no, not really. Property sells based on soil type.
Will you agree that the average of the price of pasture land based on the average price of cropland is less?
No, it depends on the particular.
No, the average, Troy. If I was to go ask Ron Lowe what the average of pasture land is he sold in Griggs County in the last 10 years compared to the average of the cropland he sold in Griggs County in the last 10 years, would you agree there'd be a difference and the pasture land would be lower?
On average, but we tax each particular parcel based on soil type. That's how land sells.
We can base it on use, and the third most prevalent indicator as a state recognizes that we don't recognize as a county is use. The land is worth less, it produces less, it should be taxed
It
less.
does not produce less.
The market says it does, Troy. Otherwise, pasture land would be selling at the same price as cropland. If I can produce the same amount of dollars from that piece of pasture land, then I would pay the same amount, then I would take cropland and turn it into pasture land. That doesn't happen. I'm talking about.
It does happen.
Listen, Troy, I said land has been consecutively used for pasture or rangeland for the prior 10 years. So it has to be in pasture or rangeland for 10 years before it would qualify to be a modifier. Easy to identify it because the NRCS and the ASCS keeps records of any cropland and they have that on record. So there would be no saying, yes, it's been pasture for 10 years. We could very, very easily check that. It would give them the ability to pay the correct taxable value of their land and not be subject to this productivity index that is a fine use, but we're not using the total tools. We're having the third most prevalent use is supposed to be use, and then that's defined by the state, but we don't use it here. We don't figure use into our equation as far as pasture land and cropland, so we're not doing it right.
Yeah, I think the Century Code says that by descending order of value, you have to first consider the productivity index,
Yep.
second the modifiers, and third the actual use.
But you guys have currently, you have an NT designated for non-tillable for any cropland or crop soil type that has not been tilled for any reason. And that lowers it to, last year, 2013 was $281 an acre, 2014 was $309 an acre. That's more beneficial than, say, if you're proposing a 50% modifier on a $1,000 soil type. I mean, they have an option to go.
$850, but how often is that used?
But that's the same as your modifier, so it's gonna be up to whether or not they use it. They have an option to use right now, and whether they use it or not is on them.
Well, then we get to the point, aren't we obligated as the county board, as any regulatory board, to implement that? Why are we charging, why are we knowingly charging people more than what they should be paying? That's my argument with this thing. We know that there's land out there that would fit the definition that you just spelled out, but we go ahead and let it be charged as cropland. It would be just as we would be just as much as fault as if we were doing it the other way, if we were charging them for pasture land and we knew it could be charged for cropland. Why are we willing to take everything to the highest common denominator on behalf of the county when we're not willing to take it to the lowest common denominator to benefit the taxpayer?
The taxpayer has not chose this option, the assessor hasn't modified it, the townships haven't modified it. So at what point, I mean.
But we chose the option to classify everything as cropland. Why didn't we choose the option to classify everything in its correct classification? I really don't like the fact that we
didn't do that.
Yes, we did, because once we have the authority to change it, then it's the same as we did.
So you want to assess all the property in Griggs County you want the county commissioners to do it?
No, I want the property assessed as to its true value, and when we have.
That's what the assessor does.
And when we have pasture land knowingly being assessed by its productivity index only as if it could be cropland, that's not correct.
It may not be correct, John, but that's on the assessor's shoulders, shouldn't it, isn't it? It only comes back to our shoulders if the landowner comes in here and demonstrates their case and we do nothing.
No, that's not totally correct. We instruct the tax equalization director as to how we want the properties in Griggs County assessed. She's ultimately over all of the assessors. That is since 1996 or whenever they have passed. All the power succeeds to the tax equalization director. So we do have the ability to tell her, here's how we want these lands classified.
And that's how she's doing it, John.
No, we're not. She could go through and she could very easily determine which land was pasture land and give it the non-tillable or whatever it is designation.
I wouldn't say very easily, but.
No, but I mean, okay, excuse me. It is possible.
But it is.
Anything's possible.
It is the primary job of the assessor to make that determination, however.
No, not anymore.
Well, they're the ones that make the first assessment.
I know, but it is ultimately the job of the tax equalization director and ultimately supervised by the county commission.
Well, that's what I think. As you give them your training.
And that's fine. But regardless of whether it's being done correctly or not, the tools are in place to do it as correctly and fairly as it can be done. Nothing is going to be perfect. And if it's not being done that way, then I think we ought to have Emily stress that to the assessor so they know that that tool is available. And hopefully they use it. If they don't use it, then the tax equalization director will have to bring it to their attention.
Well, I think Emily would have to stress that the North Dakota Century Code says that you have to take into account actual usage. And if you don't take into account actual usage, you're not complying with the Century Code. That's my opinion.
They get 4 hours every year of training. And they know, and I'm sure if any of you have ever, if you're on a township board ever, know, you have some assessors that will do the job exactly the way they've been taught, and you have other assessors that simply were put into the position because they can't find someone. It's not a good job, and they don't want to be doing modifications on their neighbor, or, you know what I mean, and not another neighbor, or assessing on it.
As you teach it, you need to tell them what the North Dakota Century Code says.
And they're taught that way.
That actual usage has to be taken into account in their assessments.
Yes, I'm not disagreeing. We don't go in.
The only way to do it 100% consistently is if the county would hire an assessor for every township and have the same person do every one of them.
Exactly.
Other than that, we're going to have to put up with some inconsistencies.
From township to township, and
And
I mean, you can't make. I suppose you could, if you went that route, make them do it. But you have the 3 levels that you're bypassing. If we say you're going to do this, you're taking it away from the owner, the assessor, the township board, in making their local decisions also.
They take the oath, Ron.
But that, wait a minute now. That cuts both ways. If we were go and classify the land as what it actually is, and I don't care if you use pasture land or non-tillable or what designation you want to give it, and we were to say here is how we believe the land is supposed to be assessed, valued. The landowner still has the ability to change that. What we're doing right here is we're throwing everything over here, and then we're counting on the taxpayer to put it where it's supposed to be correct. We should put it where it's correct first of all, and let them make the small changes, not the big changes. And we've neglected. When I say we keep perpetuating the neglect of classifying everything based on productivity when that isn't the sole basis for valuing property.
Well, it appears to me that we're using the, and it's hard to put everybody in the same basket, but soil productivity is in fact the number 1 soil classifier. Number 2 is modifiers, number 3 is use. Apparently the use portion of that analysis isn't being used to,
Which violates the century code. Maybe I'm being too technical, but technically it violates the century code.
It does.
It all falls down to the local assessors, because I know in our township, our assessor takes that into consideration.
The actual use.
Yeah, okay.
And you'll train them, but they should use the actual use.
And they are trained that way, yes.
But the organization that we just paid the $5,300 to in dues, when you talk to them, they don't even want to recognize the use portion of it. The North Dakota Association of Counties doesn't want to recognize that at all. They just want to say productivity and the modifiers. And when you call use into question, because I've had this discussion with them on many occasions, they say, well, that's not the way that we do it. That's not the way we recommend it being done. Well, again, as Ron said, that's in direct violation of the century code. So we have not a governing body, but an advisory body advising and training the people that are supposed to be passing on down to our assessors how to do this, and they're training them incorrectly. And that's the problem. We're not following the letter of the law as this thing is written.
I don't agree with some of it, so I don't.
No,
I mean,
because
not
because
everybody will.
You've been
but
indoctrinated by the very people I'm talking about.
No, but your assessor, the local assessors may not agree with that either. That may be why they haven't applied it, unfortunately.
I'll guarantee if I can sit down with each one of these assessors and tell them what they're capable, what they're able to assess this land, and to what point they can assess it to, that they will understand it. But if they're never given the ability, and every time somebody goes before a township board and complains about their taxes, and the township board says, well, I don't know, so they kick it to the county, and the county says, well, I don't know. And you go to the state, and you get to the state level, and they say, well, the county and the township didn't do anything, so we're not going to do anything either. After a while, you learn that it's like pounding your head against the wall. Somewhere in that whole scenario, someone has to be on the side of the taxpayer, and that's what I was elected to be. And so, if I am argumentative and pig-headed about this, I'm supposed to be that way, because I don't think the taxpayers are being treated correctly here.
I'm just saying it's not 100% all the time. I don't think that all the time you should, if it's not being, if it should be a high productivity soil type, it's one of the top ones, and just because they're using it for pasture land or range land because they don't do anything with it. I mean, there's a management aspect to some of it also, and I don't feel that it's 100% of the time you should change it to that low value just because they're choosing not to till it or farm it.
What?
That is that.
If it has a high productivity and it has rocks and it's not tilled, all of those have to follow through there.
I didn't mention rocks. I
It
didn't
doesn't
mention
matter.
an option of not being able to be tilled. But if it is able to be tilled, and they're choosing not to, there's management portions of this too. That's why I say it's not always 100% of the time that I agree that you should change it to a pasture or rangeland. If you're saying,
I hate to argue, but I like to do it on right. The modifier NT is allowed for areas of crop soil types that are not being tilled. Here's the important part, for any reason.
right,
If for any reason.
I don't have to agree with that either. I mean, I didn't make that rule either. I'm just saying, I don't agree 100% of the
So
time
it tells
that
you,
it should be that.
it tells you
That's all.
that you cannot till it, and you don't have to give a reason why you're not tilling it, but it still qualifies for the non-tilling
It does.
modifier.
But
Okay
it doesn't
then.
mean I agree with it. I'm just saying, I don't think that it's always black and white. You should change all of it. That was my opinion.
Why not?
I don't think the county should just go in and change all of, like he's saying, all of it to the non-tillable. I think
Well,
if they
next up.
come,
It's not non-tillable, according to the century code, it's non-tillable.
well, the NT designator.
The modifier
It's
NT
currently
is allowed for any area of crop soil types that are not being tilled for any reason.
If they come in and they want that modified, that's one thing. I'm just saying,
that's
I don't think we
century
should go in and change.
That's century code?
And to finish, these areas must be coded as NC on the FSA maps. And that's just why I said if we had it for 10 consecutive years, though it'll be coded on the maps. If you look at your maps, they say non-crop. The numbers we're talking about are real easy to arrive at here. But when we're allowing people to pay taxes on properties that aren't the value that they're paying taxes of, I don't think I'm doing my job correctly. And I realize that's going to raise some other properties, but that's the whole point of equalization. And we don't equalize to the highest common denominator, we equalize to the middle. Just because we find a piece of property here that's valued at $8 to $100, we don't raise every other property up to $800. We take the middle. That's what equalization is about. So, I'm fine with the non-tillable modifier as long, and we already changed that to 50%, so that's what we're doing anyway.
Okay, so the non-tillable, the NT designation,
Is a modifier, and we changed all the modifiers to 50%.
okay. Currently, NT is a flat 309 per acre. So
No,
you
it's
want
supposed to
to
be a
change
percentage,
that.
NT is supposed to be a percentage of the value of that soil.
Where am I missing that?
I'm not, yeah, what page are you on?
Modifier, NT is a modifier. So if we have a soil that's $300, Griggs, tell me?
Well, it's not on mine, I don't think, is it?
No, top paragraph.
Oh, okay, I was looking on
Does it say a percentage
the
though?
modifier NT.
No, we just changed it to a percentage.
Okay, so that's
So
what I'm
if
saying,
they-
right, before it was 309, so we're going to drop that.
No, it would be.
Where do you find 309?
Right.
That's what it was
Where?
Where?
in the soil, price list that was in the first packet, so with your
Oh, the
productivity and classes.
valuation?
The Dakota program sheet.
So it isn't 30,
Yeah.
it
there's
isn't
some-
30% as the other ones were?
No,
Well, this is your.
There we go, on the
This is your-
back page, right?
No, it's not.
no,
mine.
that's the
No,
state.
that isn't right. I don't have that one.
Did I miss one?
It's this. Part of this, the NC designation. So it's the two soil types, it's the regular, and then here's the,
That's sort of.
yep, and that comes to, for every single one is the flat 309.
Well, NC is different than NT.
NC, it says, will be coded as NC, and that's how she put it in, on the FSA maps. That's how she entered it into Dakota programs. So that's why it comes up like that.
Yeah, but NT is a modifier, NC is a soil type. There's a difference. NT, non-tillable, is a modifier. NC is a soil type at 309.
I can change it in the computer if you'd like
Well,
it to
I mean,
read NT.
no, that's
I'm
right,
just
yes.
telling you how it comes up, how it was entered into the computer.
The NT acres have to show up as NC on FSA maps.
Correct, but you could have an NC piece of property with 80% productivity.
Right.
You could have an NC property with 30% productivity.
Right.
They would be a different value, and if you applied the 50% non-till to them, they would come up with a different value.
Yeah.
The NT is a modifier, the NC is a soil type. That's the difference.
She entered it into Dakota programs as NC. I can certainly change that.
Well, but you can't have, a modifier can't have a specific dollar value. None of these other modifiers have a specific dollar value. They apply a percentage.
can.
They
You
apply
can
the
change it
percentage,
to
they apply the
however you-
percentage to the value of the land that you're modifying. Correct?
It can have a, you can make a specific value type, yes.
For every modifier?
Just like you put, let's get an example here. Your gravel pits would be at a, some counties have them, I think on those
$30, some of them.
set prices, woods,
But-
roads,
but-
at 20 per acre. You can
Gravel
set a
pit's
price
not a
amount.
modifier. NT is a modifier.
You can set certain price ranges for certain things.
I
They
disagree.
previously used the NT for areas that have not been tilled for whatever reason. She entered it in as NC. We can change that. That's neither
NC
here nor
is-
there. We can take out the flat 309 per acre that they previously had. We can do it the percentage like you're saying. It's all an option.
It has to be
You
done that
can
way,
do it
Emily,
however you
because
want.
it's soil type, modifier, use.
There you go.
I'm just telling you what we can do. She was right, you can do this stuff, you can.
But if
And
you,
they approved it at the state, so, and other counties are doing it too. It's not that it was wrong, maybe by opinion, yes, and we can change that.
I'm just saying, okay, you got a soil productivity index, you got a soil type that's 90% soil productivity index. It's $850 an acre. So you you change the soil type to something that it isn't.
Right.
And that changes the taxable value to 309 when it actually should change it to 425.
That's correct.
I understand.
That to me that's not fair.
It's
I
the-
understand what you're saying, but it can be done both ways.
No, it can't.
We can
No, it can't.
It can be done.
okay.
If
Let's move forward maybe with how you want it done with me going forward.
I mean, there was a mistake made, they both started with an and. One was a soil type, one was a modifier, and they applied, a modifier does not have a set value. A modifier is a percentage, a soil type is a set value.
I think the reason that they came up with soil types as, for instance, say like my 40 acres of trees north of my house,
Yeah.
it's trees is the soil type, even though the soil type is probably a 90% soil type,
Yeah.
because a modifier wouldn't take it as low as they'd take it with that soil type designation.
Yeah.
So there might be a place that is correct to apply that, and a place that it's not correct to apply that.
Well, it says the no-till modifier can only be applied to areas on the FSA map that are designated non-crop.
Right.
Yeah. And so that's correct. So the pasture land will be designated non-crop. It will have a productivity. It will be worth something. The state, it'll be worth $156 an acre or something on that matter. And then it'll be adjusted from that for the no-till part. Because we don't have everything in place. If we put the pasture into place there, then we would have a higher value for that pasture. Right now, we're not gonna be about that.
I know, but all I'm saying is it probably doesn't property value land like a stand of trees unless you override the sequence of modifiers and classify a soil type to get it down lower.
And that's exactly,
And that's what they were doing, but it shouldn't be the only method being used.
And that's exactly why the state doesn't want to use the rest of those methods, because it complicates it. It's way easier to just go strictly on soil type and then apply the modifiers. That's why they like doing it that way.
Well, I think that's the way it should be done. That's not the way we've been doing it.
Well, no, then you have to put use into it also.
Right.
Mhm. See, if I could take the best quarter of land and I could go to the FSA office and I could say, I'm not putting this in crop, and I could say, put in no crop when I sign it up. And next year I could not till it, and you could have it valued at nothing, basically. It's not worth anything. That's my prerogative. Then it should be taxed that way, because if it's not earning nothing, it's not bringing any money back into the county, what's the purpose of it?
Modifier only lowered by 50% though.
Yeah.
It won't be zero.
Well, it'll be something less than it was. And slowly by my actions, how I chose to use the land, which is the correct way of valuing any property, is how you intend to use it.
But in some cases, the landowner needs to ask for that consideration. For instance, the Bank of the West building, they're still paying $12,000 a year in taxes. It doesn't just happen.
No, but we have made the process of asking almost impossible to achieve a result, because the township officers and the assessor really doesn't know the procedure on how to fix it or doesn't want to fix it. Again, so they say, not with malice, they say, well, we don't know, let's just kick it to the county. And the county says, we don't really know, we don't want to do it.
That is not what's happened, John. Every time somebody has came here and asked us to change it, we have granted that.
If you beat a dog for looking at you, after a while, the dog won't look at you.
Everybody,
And that's what's happened here.
everybody that's come to the county commission since we've been in here has been granted their taxes lowered by whatever modifier they have asked for, whether it be roads, rocks, or whatever.
Do you think the little old lady that is being overtaxed?
No, I'm just telling you.
Can navigate this process? She can't. So we have to make the process so it's fair for everybody, not just the vocal few.
Well, I'm not telling you I think we should do it inaccurately on purpose. But your argument that the county won't do anything is inaccurate also.
In my experience in our township, little old ladies get brought to the forefront and we act on their behalf and on the township level. And that's the way it should work from the bottom up. We can't make this work from the top down very well.
Oh yeah, because we created a system. We
have to give them the tools to work with, but we can't make them use the tools.
Well, if we threw it all out there and we said, okay, all this land is cropland, now you guys fix it, the taxpayers fix it. We should have said, okay, this land we think is cropland, this land we think is rangeland, this land we think is property, is a property line. Here's how it is, now adjust it from there. We started way high and we're counting on everybody else to fix it. But we're gonna go over and over and over this again. We made some progress, we got 50% modifiers.
And
Okay.
NT, we have NT.
We have,
What else?
it's a 50% modifier now.
Okay.
Now I just need to conduct workshops throughout the county to get everybody in line.
NT will be with the other modifiers, moved from that top little block, and then applied to the
Yep.
50%. So,
And that's all we need to know.
okay. Anything else with me?
I bet it doesn't change our workload a bit. I bet no one takes advantage of it. And you're right to that.
It will
And
change
you're
my
right.
workload a little bit, because I'll have to go in and go through all the parcels that have this and change it. So it will a little bit. Or,
But doesn't the computer program, can't you just put in the percentages and kick it out?
I have to go in and change every line, recalculate, and then check all the parcels that have it. So I wish things were easier. I do, but it's not always as easy as we think. I have heard we're up to, I've heard from a couple more townships. There's 5 townships that don't have an assessor.
Yeah.
I had a little bit interest from one gentleman who does some assessing in Barnes County. And he's kind of hasn't made a decision whether he's willing to take on more or not. He was just kind of inquiring. And I've had one person ask about the job. So maybe we're onto something, I don't know.
You know, your job was almost easier here 2 years ago if just another couple 100,000 people would voted yes.
Measure 2.
Oh, well, that, who knows what
So I did my best to try-
that
I
too,
did my
right?
best
Are
to
they
try and
kicking around
simplify your
options with that?
I did my part.
Well, thank goodness I got voted for a different job, in case this one goes out of business, huh?
We like you wrong, but yeah, if I could put you out of business, I would. No. Not personal.
Anything else? Am I done? Am I free?
You're free. Yeah, I'll settle now, you don't have to come back for a while.
Thanks, Emily.
Thank you, Emily. Yeah.
I move we take a 10-minute break.
Second to the motion?
I'll second.
Second by Dale. Motion, meeting adjourned, or not adjourned. Recess.
We're chipping away, you guys.
Well, the tools were already in place, making this harder than it needs to be.
Can't make people take deductions. It's like if you want to pay the full amount they tell you on your taxes, you go ahead. I had to work the system and try to get it.
I know around versus, I mean, I just talk to people that don't, that just can't stand conflict and can't stand, they'd rather pay the money, and I just feel sorry for those people, because most of those people, the little bit of money they're gonna save means a lot to them, and I just, it's not for me, I'm able to stick up for myself.
How long have you been out there?
But even, I wasn't even going through the system, I wasn't able to make any changes. They said, I went on the state, that's exactly what happened, I went to the state, they said, well, they didn't change it, why should we?
Well, I can see what you're thinking. It's like, well, if the neighbors don't think that's the way it should be done.
Yeah.
And that's how, when it comes to this level,
Yeah.
well, if the guys who live next to them don't think it's right, then why do we?
Yeah. But the township didn't, they didn't say it wasn't right, they just said, well, we don't know
They didn't know how to.
how to do it, and the county, the county said, well, we don't know how to do it, so we'll go to the state, the state said, well, on you go.
Does he have any idea what he wants to do? No.
Dale, did you second the recess?
I did. I like recess. I was good at recess.
Yeah, I wanted to measure 2 real bad.
Yeah, that was too bad. But they didn't do it right,
What?
they didn't.
It was
didn't
too
offer
short a
anything.
time when they started.
Didn't offer an alternative, they just said that the state's supposed to figure it out. There was lots of alternatives, they just didn't offer one.
Yeah, and it's such a short time period that they started running through. Yeah.
These people assume that we know what all these acronyms are.
I don't attach that bulletin.
Oh,
Bother.
holy bureaucracies. Batman. Shippo-ema, meow.
I'm sure there's hundreds more where they come
Okay. It's been 10.
It's on, isn't
We gotta go. Call the meeting back to order. We can move down to Bob.
Okay, I got an email from Sam asking if I'd come to the meeting today, talk about what could be done with the existing courthouse ones for the new one. So I guess there's two things, it's gonna stay where it is or it's gonna be torn down. So I took the tear down route. I attached some emails there. I spoke with that Richard Meyer, he goes by Rick, yesterday on the phone, and he resent me this again. He said that this is the exact same process you're looking at on this flow chart is what the State Historical Society gave to the county commissioners verbally in 2009 when they came out and visited about the old courthouse. Rick made it pretty clear that FEMA's not really too interested in getting deeply involved in this unless they need to, because the building's built, it didn't affect the courthouse, you know, it's kind of off the plate, the existing courthouse. What happens from this point forward is between, I guess, the county commission and the citizens. So you got two options. Commissioners can make a resolution vote to tear it down and go start the process, or you can have the citizens vote it. And all kind of funnel back to the middle and work its way through.
Right, but FEMA could get caught in the middle of this thing if the state historical preservation.
Yep. What Rick told me on the phone, he says how this works. He said if you decide you want to take it down, you can do it two ways. Either you guys decide it's coming down, or you can put the vote of people. Once that determination's made, then you you get your plan together. What you want to do with it, you communicate with the state historical office. And you also notify FEMA that you're in the process of this. Then it flows down to a consultation between the three of you.
What's State Historical SHPO?
Yep, State Historical Preservation Office and officer, these that work both ways. That's the Historical Society, that's an element within the State Historical Society.
Is that guy from Finley?
Yeah. I think he's done now, or close to it.
Oh, did he retire?
Yeah,
Oh, I suppose, yeah, he was.
ACHP?
Yeah, that's the Advisory Council on Historic Places. Right at the bottom, John.
Oh, yeah, I got it.
That's a federal office.
That's where that Preserving America came out of, and all when they were getting money for major projects here a few years back. And I believe the money that the state gets for their historical preservation, and the federal government comes through that agency also.
But they would only be involved if we can't come to an agreement with the state.
And they would be advised of it, but they would not take part unless, then they would just come into the works with you guys up front. Rick made it very clear to me in phone. He said, the courthouse belongs to Griggs County. If you decide you're gonna tear it down, you have to follow this procedure just like they were told, 5, 6 years ago. The process has never changed. It's final decision comes to Griggs County. He also said FEMA is not very interested in taking money back. That's not why they build buildings, help build projects.
I wonder what their consideration of adverse effects are.
Well, see, we had, our first designation from the State Historical Society was no adverse effect. When we moved the building from the north side back over here, we got that was the first no adverse effect.
I know, but tearing it down would appear to be kind of an adverse effect.
But what he said, they're gonna have to tie that the EOC, because that EOC was built 3 years ago, you tear it down there, the State Historical Society will have to say, that caused an adverse effect on the courthouse. Well, the EOC's built and there was no adverse effect done to the courthouse. He said that their two are going to be separated at some point. So this is where it's at. This is how it's done. It's right here. And the State Historical Society made it very clear that Griggs County could tear this building down way before any of this project started when they were out here and visited. And the major key there is it has to be documented through their process and where they're happy with it.
I don't have the document in front of me, and I'm not saying that we can't change it, but the State Historical Society agreed to the no adverse effect if we would not tear down the old courthouse. And there was a caveat in there, and
Well, John, see, that's what the caveat is. The
Yeah.
words were never saying that we were never gonna tear down the courthouse. It was gonna be maintained in place. Maintained in place during the project. Now, what happens 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now? Like Rick said, that's really not tied to EOC anymore. You didn't damage nothing to build an EOC. The building's still standing here. You didn't damage any historic property next to the courthouse. This project has been done, the building's fine, there's been no adverse effect to it. We didn't tear the additions off it. I mean, the county didn't do that. He said, no, this is a new day. If you guys decide a year from now you wanna do a vote and people say we're tearing the courthouse down, he said, that carries tremendous weight. And he said, they really can't tell you no. They really can't tell you no. He said, FEMA's role in this strictly is,
but they could make us pay the money back, possibly.
yeah, possibly. He said the chances of that are just about 0.
Well,
and I mean, that's just what he told me. So I got.
But that has to be written. I mean, that's what that's
And that's
what
gonna
we're
happen
concerned
for the-
about is paying the money back. So
Right.
that has to be documented. The chances of it has to be 0.
That's where this process comes in. You have to make your determination if you're going to tear it down or leave the place. And if it's tear it down, then this is the process.
Seems to me it won't matter till 2016, because that's the next time we're gonna put it to a vote.
Yep.
And
It has to go to a
once
vote.
the people decide what they want it done with it, then we'll have to start the process, and then we'll have to figure out if we can afford it.
And he said by far, he said if the citizens of Griggs County both take the courthouse down, he said that speaks volumes. I mean, it belongs to the citizens of Griggs County, he said courthouse.
Well, that's the only way it's ever gonna happen.
Can we slide that other one over to the middle of the block then, when this one's done?
Well, I mean, if not, the measures failed anyway, but if the citizens would have known that this courthouse had to stand here, there wouldn't have been 2 people vote for this damn new courthouse here. So
And
this is bad.
yes, here's my conversation with Rick. He said this courthouse does not have to stand here. He goes, the process is there. If you guys follow that process, it can come down.
No, what I'm saying is,
Oh, I know what you're saying, John.
in the elections, if the people would have known that if they built a new one, that they had to maintain this old one, or it would be a problem maintaining this old one, there never would have been a vote to build a new one, but that's water under the bridge.
Well, there never was a vote to build a new one, John.
No, but they used the fact that it was close as justification for building a new one. Yeah.
Close only counts on hand grenades and horseshoes.
And evidently building EOC and courthouses. Because it's sitting, the proof of it sitting right there.
Well, at some point, we'll just put it before the people and then
Yeah.
start the process, let's lay
Right.
out what we can do.
But in order to put it through before the people, we're gonna have to come up with a cost. There's gonna have to be a cost for keeping it and a cost for tearing it down, so we're gonna have to put that out on bids, and here's what it'll cost, or. I can't believe that advertised correctly, the materials in this thing aren't worth someone coming from the East Coast or where they.
Well, if
tear
you guys ever been up in the attic, the rafters in the attic, they're about 2.5, almost 3 inches thick by a foot, and there's not a knot in them for 40
Yeah.
feet. It is amazing.
And so every floor joist is that way.
Mhm.
And I mean, but you know, all these, they.
Hardwood
they-
flooring, the trim,
Everything.
radiators.
Doors, all that tin downstairs.
So probably advertised correctly, it probably isn't, it might even be an asset.
As a,
You might get paid.
as a salvage, it may pay for the demolition.
Another thing Rick mentioned, he said, you know, the State Historical Preservation Office, one of their functions is to preserve record of this building, and he goes, they have money that, he goes, they almost would have to be forced to give you some of that money, because that's their purpose.
Yeah.
And he goes, and Rick here says, we can't save every building in the world, we just can't. And so this is the process, and if you want me to dig in further about this, find some examples of other places that have went through this, I'll surely do that, because there's many out there.
Well, no, I mean, if that's the case.
There is a process.
The process
We're not ready to start it yet.
We need to start getting some cost estimates, and then we need to put it to a vote, and then from there it goes, and either goes or doesn't. And
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's what I have.
Okay.
That covered it for today?
Anybody,
Yeah.
have you guys had a building authority meeting?
When was the last one?
Was it just for January?
Yeah.
January 5th or 6th or something?
Two, I've seen Bob, the guy, he's on Florida or in Arizona, so.
But you're going through and making sure that every last dime that we can turn in for reimbursements. get
Yep,
done.
we met with Colin and Ron met him at.
That it, you know,
You found some more stuff?
yeah.
A few, I mean, it's not gonna be earth shaking, but there's some things.
Because the building authority, of course, is hanging their hat on the fact that the county owes them money, and we need to make sure that we find all that. I mean, if in fact there's been money spent on this project that we haven't turned in for reimbursement, we need to find it,
Yeah.
we need to turn it over to the building authority so they can use it. We need to dispel any contradiction between who's paid for what, and the only way to do that is make sure that every last dime has been turned over for evaluation to the DES, and then that whole argument goes away. Then the county's paid for this, and the building authority paid for that, and away we go. So we're kind of counting on you guys to make sure that's,
We hit everything yesterday.
because if it goes much farther, you know, the mitigation or litigation, they're gonna ask you flat out, has everything been turned in? And you're gonna be able to say, yes, it has, or no, it hasn't. And if you say, no, it hasn't, someone's gonna be accountable for that. And unfortunately, it's you two. So we'll help you any way we can, but that's what it's getting down to is who's paid what, and we're getting close, but we're not there yet.
So if these contractors come back, what's the building authority, are they gonna finish the courthouse, or are we just gonna move into the EOC center?
I don't know, they haven't discussed that I know of.
I read the numbers guy's quote in the paper, but it's not accurate.
No, and we really don't have any, we can offer, we've already told them that we'll pay them what monies they're due when we get done with this thing. We can't do anything else. It is separate for a reason. It can't be, okay, we're forming a building authority to build a courthouse because we want to be independent of the voters of Griggs County so that we can do it, and then when we get in the bind, we can't say, okay, voters of Griggs County come in and save us. It can't be both ways. So we can only do what we can do. And if our responsibility is the EOC Center, then that's what we're responsible for. And it appears like that's where the line has been drawn. We're responsible for the EOC and they're responsible for the courthouse portion of it. So we'll do what we can, we'll help them when we can, but other than that, we don't have the ability to take taxpayer dollars and throw it to a private entity.
Connie?
I just want to remind you that the bond cannot pay for those 4 offices. That's why that 290 was spent before. So, you know, finishing those 4 offices cannot be covered by the bond either, or the EOC grant. So if you're using that 290 as part of the match, then the county still has to pay for the 4 offices.
No.
The 4 offices' total cost was supposed to be the 290,
Right.
Yeah.
and it's already been paid.
Yep.
But it was,
But
but
he used it as an EOC grant match, and then we can't, in the bookwork. It wasn't sent in as the EOC.
first of all, the other offices was not,
It's not part of it's not part of the EOC.
No, and it's not part of the bond.
it is the $290,000 that the county paid to the Bank of North Dakota was not paid as other offices. As soon as I find that payment.
No, it was paid back because the bond paid for the other offices, and it was not supposed to. So it had to be paid back.
That's right. And the other offices don't have a financing source. And the other offices was an afterthought because
No, they always knew that
They
the
didn't
other
fit into the century
well,
code.
the $290,000 was paid by the was paid back to the county, and it wasn't designated as other offices. It was designated as a payment as it was supposed to be a payment for the $290,000 was a payment for the 25% match. Now,
originally, the $290,000 was paid as the payment of the 4 offices.
No such thing.
It's in the minutes of the meetings.
It doesn't matter in the minutes of the meeting, there was no check that matches that, and the checks that went out for the construction of the building, and the check came back for a payment made for the 25% match, and that's how the Bank of North Dakota looked at it. The checks going out don't designate other offices. The only reason the other offices was in there was an afterthought because they realized that they were building something that they couldn't be involved in the bond issue, but there was no funding for it. So I find it a little bit, and we have the building authority on 3 different occasions and their lawyer stating that Griggs County has already paid their match. So we have a letter from the Grossman stating that very thing. So you tell me which way it's supposed to be, and I find it a little offensive that you as a county employee are trying to side with the building authority, which in fact puts the county in a position of having to pay another $290,000. That isn't, I don't think, the correct position that you should be taking here, especially when the facts don't prove out that way.
I'm not siding with the building authority, and I'm bringing this up because I want you to be aware that.
I'm fully aware of it.
Remember.
I'm fully aware of it, and there is no justification for those other offices funding whatsoever.
How can the county pay an entity $290,000 for offices, to build offices and then release it back from them?
That's right. There's no.
That's not
Release it
essentially
back from who?
the building authority. We don't own that building.
I'm not understanding the way you're thinking. The county paid the $290,000 to the bond because it hadn't originally been paid to construction engineers in that first payment. And they intended it to.
Says the grant didn't get funded.
Mhm.
Which grant?
The EOC grant.
That's why the county was paying the money.
You guys, I'm just going to lay this out there. I'm not going to get a big argument in this, but those 4 offices were identified at day 1 as project as could not be paid by the grant. I mean, by the bond. They couldn't be. That was their day 1.
No, they weren't.
Yeah, Troy, I sat in those meetings. That was talked about many times. And I'm not defending anybody here. I'm just saying I sat at those county commissioner meetings, and the day they paid that money was paid to cover the cost of those 4 offices. It's in the minutes.
And
from that point forward, how the bookkeeping goes, that's not in my hands in any way. I just know that when that money was paid, it was paid by the Griggs County Commission. And now whether that's right or wrong, I'm not here to determine that.
2 things, and of course the story's changed back and forth, in my opinion.
It's in the minutes. That's in the minutes. What I'm talking about is in the minutes.
The $290,000 was to be the 25% match on the grant, but it was gonna go into those offices maybe. I don't get it. But in fact, since the county doesn't own the building, I don't know how the county can spend money on that building.
You're sitting right now, I agree with you on that one, Troy. I mean, that's a, but that 294 was never ever identified as a match on the UC grant in my presence, ever. It was talked about being openly for those 4 offices. That's what it was talked about. Now, how the bookwork plays off from that point forward, I can't tell you. That is in the minutes that was talked about way more than once. That was definitely up front by the bonding attorneys, and the Century Code says spells out clearly.
The $290,000 was 25% of the 1.2 million.
Just a little bit short,
So that may very well be. That was never ever talked about for that purpose.
So in your understanding then, the county was going to put $580,000 into this project.
My understanding, my concern in this project was the EOC, and there was a match on it. Okay. All I'm saying here, Dave, is I know the 294 we're talking about, that was identified clearly more than once
that is incorrect. That is incorrect.
Did you read the minutes, Troy? It's in the minutes.
It very well might be in the minutes. It's not in the written minutes, and you guys lost the other minutes.
I didn't lose nothing, John.
Well, it's not in the.
John, I'm not the county auditor, I don't take minutes, don't start pointing there.
It's not in the written minutes, and I've read it over and over and over again. Now, this might be another instance where the materials just automatically, we found them in the desk drawer, but it's not in the written minutes. And besides that, the documentation doesn't back that up. And the building authority, twice, their secretary has said that the county's already paid their match, and the building authority's attorney has said that the match has been paid. There was never any funding in the county to pay, as Troy said, $500 and some odd $1,000. It was always assumed that the match was the $290,000. The fact that they used the match to try and cover up a screw up in the whole process doesn't matter to me.
Okay, so we're sitting here today at 3:30 on a Friday in the middle of January. What do you want from me and Connie in this process? I mean, we've been around.
We want you to find every last dime that's available.
Yeah, and we've already talked about
Right.
doing that. We met with Ron yesterday, we've gone through that, and it's not gonna be a large amount of money, it's basically money. So we're doing that, so I don't, what else do you want from us here? Because I'll do whatever we need to do.
Well, then if you do whatever you need to do, then you should try to get the building authority to get on board with this thing. Because we can't hardly give the building authority whether it be 110 or 95,000, wherever we end up when this thing is done, we can't very well give them the money if they're not going to turn it over to construction engineers. And we can't give it directly to construction engineers. This thing's going to fall apart. There's $193,000 in the building authority's checking account. If we get the $100,000 that we're going to be left over from after we finish the project, that will cover construction engineers. That's what they're owed. It might not finish the project, but it will get construction engineers paid in full. I don't think it's fair to construction engineers that the building authority is sitting on money, their money, construction engineers worried about an argument between the county and the building authority.
Agree wholeheartedly.
Okay, so
I have no voice. I mean, I have no vote, but I can pressure, and I did last time. I thought for sure they'd do it last time. Tommy and I, we talked about that, and I don't, where it is now, that's not my vote. I'll sure push for it, because I personally, me personally, John, I agree 100% with that thinking. 100%. That's me.
What was the total cost of the project gonna be, Bob?
3.49.
Yeah,
3.49 million.
Yeah,
Yeah.
494.
3.494.
And I'm fine. Let's get construction engineers paid off. Then if the building authority wants to make the argument that payment was for the other offices, I'm all for making that argument, because that'll take all of 10 minutes to show the documentation that that's a frivolous argument. That is the building authority's argument to not settle this thing. That's why they're saying that. They're saying the county owes us $294,000. We can't settle till they get paid. That's not the case.
They don't want the 294, they want that to pay to construction engineers if that's something that's owed.
It's not owed. It can't, well, Connie, how can it be? When you people get done with this, turning every last dime that's been paid to construction engineers over to the DES is going to determine how much money has been paid for the building. We have a check for $290,000 plus some other incidentals that cover our 25% match, plus the $2.2 million equals the total price of the project. So where is the extra money supposed to go? So you're saying then that the courthouse or the bond portion of the project was 2.2, and there was another $290,000 on top of that. So the price of the project then was $3.7 million, which Ron and I said over and over and over again, leading up to this whole thing, and we're poo-pooing.
That's not where I get to though. You got 2.2 plus 290,000
2.5.
Plus 1.3
plus 988,000.
plus the 1.3 plus the 300,000. They're saying that
Match.
there's another $290,000. That's $290,000 that the county paid for the match was actually paid for the other offices. Yeah.
Right. But so you got the bond is 2.2 million.
Yep.
The county's 25% is 290,000.
No, it's
It's
325.
They're saying it's not.
The county's match is 324 or something.
Okay,
It's not-
324.
So that's 2.5 then. I'm adding up as you go, 2.2, 300,000 match is 2.5, okay,
3.5.
yeah. And then the $1 million grant is 3.5, and the 290,000 is 3.8.
Yeah.
Okay. I get it. So the bond plus the county is 324,000 plus the 988,000 should finish the project.
Plus the 290,000 and the bond amount.
Okay, the Bank of North Dakota listed the $290,000 as funds returned from Griggs County. Not anything to do with other offices, funds returned from Griggs County.
That's because all they got was a check, there was no documentation.
I mean,
I'm just saying that's.
I know, but it again, really concerning that you are taking the argument of the building authority side in this. That bothers me.
I'm sorry you could see it that way, I
I don't see it any other way.
I'm trying to be fair to both sides, or even with both sides, or on both sides, which is tough.
There's only one side of it as I see it.
Well, that's true.
So it's been a while since I've done this math now. The county has already put in the 324,000.
That's what their lawyer said, that's what Keith has said twice, that the county has paid their matching for.
DES doesn't say that. DES doesn't say that. They're only showing on what, at least the few things we've gotten back from them, they only show a portion of that.
No.
The 25% match on the things we've gotten back.
Well, they're only
doesn't
reimbursing
show that.
They're
25%.
only reimbursing 75%. So we have paid, right now, we've paid up to about,
A mil, 800,000 maybe, 850,000, and we've got 75% of that.
right, so we've paid about $240,000 of the match.
52.
And then whatever's left at the end of the project will go to the building authority.
Whatever's left at the end of the project will be the portion the building authority has expended on our behalf. So if we get to the end of the project and we spend every dime on the EOC and the money left over goes to the building authority, that's every dime that they've expended on our behalf. Now there is monies that Griggs County has expended on the behalf of the building authority that needs to come back the other way. But that's another issue. So no matter what happens here, we're going to finish our portion of it, I hope. And I hope the building authority finishes their portion of it. And if not, we don't have the authority to do anything, but their premise that they're not paying construction engineers because the county owes them money is ludicrous. They're responsible for mitigating any damages, and if they have a concern, then they can voice that concern after the fact. So what's left that we need to turn in for payment?
There's some craft architects bills that have been paid. There is, we're checking into TJ's, we haven't heard back from
TJ might be a big one. Hopefully.
No, that's not going to be a big one.
Okay, the potential is there.
No, not really wrong.
Okay.
In the Fulton, it's only cost as much, it's just wires and connectors.
Yeah.
You know, you're just talking 4 or 5 little offices that are just there. I don't think there's be much of anything, but he's still got work to do to finish.
Yeah.
And then we'll have a portion of the landscaping, concrete, finishing off the building.
But I still we couldn't come up with.
That's included in the 63,000 though.
Right, but we still are gonna recapture some of that money.
Yeah. It's just that we couldn't come up with it balancing. That $17,000, it didn't look like had gone into the DES. And we want to check on
Yeah.
it and make sure that I thought it should go into the DES. And if it shouldn't, it shouldn't. But
Yeah,
it looked to me like maybe.
I'm having to give us a more detailed breakdown.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So
I'll send it to you, I guess.
Well, yeah, I just want to make sure.
Well, I agree with you.
We do everything.
If we can capture a few more thousands or something. let's do
Yeah,
it.
well, just everything that was spent on the DES, honestly, needs to go into them, and we try to get reimbursed. But, and it just seems kind of like the computer wiring, there'd be a lot more in the DOC, I imagine, than in the other part.
Well, not necessarily, Ron, it's computer terminals, I mean,
But there's wiring to the computer terminals and stuff. I thought it was more heavy.
yeah, well, if you don't look at the wiring going this direction versus this direction, you're talking this versus this.
In that direction, it's big.
I mean, the wiring coming to the east end of the corridors, there's quite a bundle.
Oh, okay. But-
I've got like five computer terminals, and
Okay.
that's what we're wiring there.
Okay.
I don't get that network is that frickin' giant. That is unbelievable.
It's hardware. It's hardware that's going for terminals.
I know, but there's, what is it gonna be, 12 people in that building? And there's 200 computer hookups?
Well, all the printers, everything in my office is hooked. Some of that stuff in my office is for radios, not computers. There'll be, instead of having like an old fashioned base radio, there'll be a thing on my desk, and the other desk, it's a radio with a handset. There's wiring for that.
I get that.
Yeah,
But I'm still.
as far as the IT bullet, Troy, that's not my area.
I'm still looking at all that Cat 6 cable and thinking, holy smokes.
Yeah.
That is, have you looked in that room?
Yeah.
Wow.
And they can't, I know, as far as I know in the network, you can't share a Cat 6 between 3 computers on the state system. They gotta be individual.
Well, absolutely not. No,
Yeah.
I know, but there's not gonna be 200 computers in there.
There's like 7 terminals in the courtroom. So seven terminations because of the IT required for the court system, and it stacks up. So I'm not an expert in that, so I'm not gonna try and defend it or deny it or knock it out.
I mean, it's a lot cheaper to put it in when you build it than try to put it in later.
And that's why I went with Cat 6, because it would make sense to go 5.
So have we, at one time, Craft Architects stated that a higher percentage than the 37% or 34% of their of their fees were associated with the EOC. Can we document that? And can
Oh,
we?
we have the letter from her.
What we got from her, that's what we used for that percentage. And that's one of the things we're trying to get some more money back from the state on, because the state, Debbie cut that down with no explanation to us. So, if you did get, we're sending Debbie an email, an explanation for that, because that was, those costs that we submitted for crafts, that was 100% EOC work from her. So that's.
And that should be all of that. So her total fee was it $270,000?
$250, I think. Wasn't it? We paid her $250 altogether with the extra stuff.
Yeah, well, yeah, with the extras.
Right. The first $14,000 was solely EOC, correct? In 2012, we paid her a check there was a check paid for $6,550.
No, that was for the work they did to develop the plan. That was not EOC work. The EOC portion was in that. But that was
planning.
they went through the request for proposals and all that, and they were hired. That's when they did this.
Yeah,
They came up with this.
yeah, Bob was saying, even though the building authority wasn't formed, they did that work for election number 3
Great.
before the building authority was formed, is what Bob is saying.
And that's where that came from. I mean, she was paid to do the work, develop the plan.
For elections.
I mean, any project you have to. I mean, we couldn't even apply for a grant if we didn't have a plan. You could,
Well, that's what I mean, wasn't that work solely for the grant,
no.
for the EOC?
No, they came up with can't think of the word, a proposal of the building. They drew the building up, floor plans and everything, that's where that money went from.
That was that plan where the courthouse, new courthouse was located out north. That was
Yeah.
what that.
It's the same building, just a different location, but I mean, the building has not changed any since that.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that.
So the $250,000 at 37.
We should get
About 75.
54%, 58%
So it's-
of that 250,000.
Well, the way we did it, we got 69,000 and
See, we submitted the percentage as Kraft's indicated with their number.
yeah.
And Daniel Cole chose to chop that down, and that's, we're trying to figure out what, we're gonna ask her what was the reasoning for that, because the cost that we submitted to them was 100% EOC cost of Kraft's total bill.
Yeah, I think we have
And
a
the
real
same
good
with the
argument for
Jamestown
it.
Tower.
I do too, yeah.
Jamestown Communications. the
Oh, you
tower.
cut it down by the 37% right away, and then
59, it was like 59 Kraft's, 59 or 51, I'll have a letter with me on there.
Well, on the full amount, on the full 250, if we got 37% of it and a 75% match, we would get 69,000. If we get to 58%, we would get 108. So there's $40,000 difference there.
See, that's, we were expecting 108 or 109 or whatever it was.
And the numbers aren't as big for that Jamestown Communications, but that tower was fully EOC cost, and she only gave us an eligible number of like 32% or 34%.
Yeah.
It was too low. There was a few that weren't too big.
You know, I think they're not earth-shaking dollar amounts, but they all add up.
So
And
we just have to
then
question some of the reasons.
the other ones that when I was going through here, that was paid strictly by the county. If I find that here. Just that as I was going through here, Allard Trophy, Cooperstown True Value, Fargo Rubber Stamp Works, TJ Electronics, Verizon Wireless. Those are all payments made directly by the county. I don't have the dollar amount here, but that was just some of them when I was going through the check in the book that I don't know has been turned in or not.
I don't know.
That's where we get our name tags.
Yeah, that all always had nothing to do with the bid project.
I can't.
Because the only thing that was the Indigo signs, and then
Electro Watchman.
like a Watchman, and then they had a company that did the door badging for inside the building. They're sitting in boxes over there. There's no Eller Trophy involved in there.
Huh?
Mhm. And same with Cooperstown True Value. I don't know what that would have been for the building. Because if.
Just can't imagine.
Yeah,
Could have been CE got something, they would have taken care of it themselves.
yeah, it would have been through them.
Well, this came from the old commissioners.
Hmm.
This is in a letter from Lee Grossman to the county. One of the issues that Griggs County is having with paying construction engineers is that the county cannot make direct payments to a private entity. This conclusion is not true. The county has already made direct payments to Craft Architects for its work on the project. The county has also made payments in the past, as recently as July 18th, 2014, to Allard Trophy, Cooperstown True Value, Fargo Rubber Stamp Works, TG Electronics,
Okay.
Verizon
John,
Wireless.
John, hold on.
So that either came from
John,
you,
John,
or one of the,
John,
or one of
John,
the commissioners.
Let me say this. That's an example of the county paying to a private entity. That's all it is. That has nothing to do with the project. That's an example of the county can write checks to private entities for business concerns. That's all that is.
So you wrote this.
No, I didn't write it down. Because I didn't write it down. I sat in that meeting, that's what it was.
The meeting that they never had.
But I know that it was in the paper media that you guys are saying that you can't do this. And he said, well, you can because it happens all the time. And counties do write checks to private businesses all the time, and now that's as far as Allard Trophy and Harsha, they had nothing to do with this project.
Still feels like there's two sides to this thing, Bob.
Yeah, there may be.
Yeah, and I sure wish you were on the taxpayer side of it.
County can't build buildings for a private entity. And the bond is 2.2, the 25% county match is 324, and the rest of the bond is 388, that's 3.5 million. I still don't know where the other $290,000 that the county's supposed to put into this project lies.
Correct.
It ain't there.
And the fact that $290,000 was paid just real shortly before we took office is another indication of why that was done. It was done to try to get around the fact that they misinterpreted the use of 57, 15, 59. But again, we have it in writing and from 3 different people, 2 of them being the secretary of the building authority, that the county has paid their match.
For the lawyer,
And their lawyer.
and their lawyer.
So, and we have the Bank of North Dakota accepting the money and showing it that it has nothing to do with the other offices. So that's neither here nor there, but that's what the building authority is hanging their hat on for not settling this thing. They're saying the county still owes us $290,000 and we're not gonna settle until they pay us. And that is.
So the project was $3.8 million?
Ron and I can show you the newspaper articles that we said just that. And we can show the rebuttals of that where they just absolutely denied it. Again.
Well, it doesn't need to be 3.8 million. We know what it's gonna cost to finish it.
And we know what's been put into it. We know exactly, because we've turned every last dime into the DES, and they're determining what part is the building authority and what part's the rest of it. And we're gonna give every dime of it that we don't use on the EOC to the building authority. And they got their wish. They don't have to have permission from the taxpayers to build the building, in which they stated when this thing all started. So we'll help them finish it, but if they don't wanna finish it, I'm not gonna let the taxpayers take responsibility for it.
Is there a breakdown of 63,000, what they?
Yeah, there is.
Because-
37,000 of it is outside.
Well, more than that.
And maybe 40,000.
Okay, now that's my question, because, the parking and all that is a portion of the EOC.
Yep.
Yeah,
The majority of it is outside work. There isn't a hell of a lot left in the inside,
Yeah,
doesn't
that's
look
right.
like.
More than half, about probably 60% outside work, maybe, and
Yeah.
40% inside.
I just wanted to make sure that was included in that.
Yeah.
Just the total cost to finish.
Total contract and bill was like.
Yeah.
They're gonna write us a contract for that?
We hope so.
Are they gonna write a contract for the building authority?
I don't know that, I guess if they request it. I mean, we would hope that they come back and, we would hope that when it's all said and done, that we have a contract to finish and the building authority has a contract to finish. That would be the hope. But when we made the payment of $143,000, we requested that the construction engineers complete the project for the remaining amount, and we'll just have to see what they say. And if they do that, I assume we sent in the 142 for reimbursement, didn't we, Connie?
Not yet, it's.
Yeah,
ready to
but it's
go,
gonna be, right.
Yeah, we're just checking with the other amounts.
Right. So we'll see he's gonna accept the 142, and then whether he finishes it or we hire outside
He's already
contractors.
cashed that check, I'm sure.
Yeah. Whether he finishes it or we hire outside contractors to finish it. And then whatever money we have left, when it's done, we'll just turn over to the building authority, but in the meantime, if they just drag their feet, we're gonna go to mediation, because construction engineers has a contract with both the building authority and the county. And the fact that the building authority is arguing that the county owes them money has no precedence and has nothing to do with this contract they signed with construction engineers. The building authority signed a contract for $2.9 million with construction engineers, and it didn't say list any stipulations in there.
Supposed to have your funding included.
So if construction engineers doesn't get paid, the building authority is going to get sued and the county is going to get sued. And it's that simple. So this whole argument that we're having here is irrelevant because it doesn't matter.
Agree.
It doesn't matter if it's not engineers.
Because the judge is gonna sort it out. And construction engineers is gonna say the county's paid us in full for their portion of the project. And the judge is gonna say, do you have any money, building authority? And they're gonna say, yeah, we do, but we're not gonna spend it. And he's gonna say, yeah, you are.
I'm all for having a discussion with the building authority about who's paid what and who owes what, but this isn't the time for it and it won't change anything. But the fact that the building authority or someone within the building authority is using that fact to hold the process up is almost criminal. That's just not that is a discussion not relevant to the problem we have right here. So whoever is causing that to be an issue needs to be sat down and told that that can't be an issue until after the fact. That they have obligations, they've signed documents, we've signed documents, and none of this means anything to the people that are going to enforce those documents.
Or did ICOF maintain this contract or did they sell it?
What's that?
Did ICOF maintain this contract or did he sell it to the owners?
I don't know what you mean, well, I don't know that. There is no contract. We have no contract, so would he?
No, we have a balance owing though.
Right.
Well, we don't.
Did he sell the accounts receivable? I don't know.
Yeah, I was just curious what that kind
And I don't know if construction engineers is under new ownership there.
Yeah, they are.
Is it?
Oh,
Okay.
all right.
of. It's old.
I got those.
Their head guy bought it out.
Okay, so anyway, there's a remedy for this thing.
But John's still working there every day.
John Steen and John Eichhoff isn't. They're about ready to. I think he's got the thing cleaning up out west, and then they're done.
So as a building authority, is someone sat down and explained to them what's happening here?
Not as yet. We will.
Because too much more money spent and there won't be enough to cover even construction engineers' costs. They're owed $274,000 is what they're owed from the building authority's side of it.
Do you guys have you have a breakdown you want to write down that we can get it?
Ron's got
we
it.
can get it to him.
Yeah, I suppose that those 6 options that we looked at.
No, the building from construction.
The document from construction engineer.
Well, they have that, I'm sure, the billing. There was that payroll request 8A, it went.
Troy's got it.
Went to you, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm
Yeah,
sure
well,
you sent it to
Numbers are on there.
It shows 200 to pay and finish is 205 for the county. To pay and finish it was 396 for the.
Yeah, I think that's right.
It came to 603,000
Between the
total.
two.
Between the two.
We've got it here.
It was about 242, I think, for the building authority to finish another hiring.
Because we'll pass on her if you in case you want to pass on. I have no problem with it. I want to get it done. You do it.
But yeah, just as long as you give them payroll request 8A.
I don't, you know what, you guys brought that, I don't know that, did you pass that thing
I thought
out?
we had 80 in our packet last
Oh,
week.
I don't remember exactly.
I don't think so.
We have none of it. I have not. I've never seen it.
I had copies of it, I guess, but,
I don't have that, I had, that thing that was handed out by John Ico.
But
Or mail
if the building authority truly intends not to pay and to fight, why don't they just resign and walk away? Why don't they, if their intent is to have the county finish it, which seems to be their intent, then why do they want control? Then resign, put us under, and then let us finish it. But they can't have control of this in both ways. They want to fight about it, but they want to fight about it using John Eichhoff's money. They're going to spend that $193,000, which is construction engineers' money.
I'm not arguing. I'm in total agreement on most of that. I really am.
Their attorney says they're only obligated to spend the bond money. That's it. That's the attorney's advice. That comes right from him. I got the letter. So why don't they spend the bond money and walk away?
Instead of spending it on him.
yeah.
Again, they're not. Someone in that building authority is not basing this on a rational train of thought. It's not surprising, but that's what's happening. And I don't know if you noticed, Bob, but you're spending a lot of time on it, so are we, and we wouldn't have to be.
Oh my God, I know. We talked about it personally. I agree with you. Connie, I'm sure too.
Well, so let's remember then. Let's remember then who's causing these problems. It isn't just but a bunch of people here. Right now, the problems are being caused and this thing's being held up because of 5 other people. And let's throw away what everybody thought before or after or since. Right now, they're the problem. And we're all county employees or elected officials. We have to be on the side of the county, not on the other side. So we're counting on Bob to fix it.
Sure.
Bob, the fixer guy.
And we'll give him,
You think he's got enough tools in his toolbox?
we'll give you all the credit in the world to fix it, but we're gonna blame you if you don't.
Bring your stick to their knee.
Well, I think it's pretty simple. This can be done the hard way or the easy way.
Well, they have money in their account, they have bills owed. That's pretty simple to figure out.
Yeah, it is.
And if they would pay, then John would be more willing to work with them, which would allow us to spend money with construction engineers, which would allow a reimbursement, which would go to the building authority. There's no
Makes the
sense
flow.
in not doing this.
Okay, I think we all got that.
Yep.
Do we want to fix this contingent language?
Well, let's just see how he reacts. If construction engineers, if they come through and
If they agree to it?
yeah.
Then they did it contingent.
Well, I mean, we didn't.
No, it wasn't our intent.
That language wasn't in the.
Whether that was sent.
No.
Yeah.
It was removed, based on Jamie's recommendation. But
Well, we can fix that. I mean, we can certainly have a motion to the point that the language in the last meeting finishing the courthouse contingent or accepting the $142,000 payment contingent on finishing the courthouse was misworded. And that it should have said
With the option.
With the option to finish.
or
The
request
EOC portion.
the request,
Yeah, option or request, yeah, either one.
because we did request.
Yeah. And I think during discussion, I think I did use the word contingent, and I think that's what.
It ended up in the motion.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if we need any action based on that, or maybe just a statement in the minutes.
Until we see how it turns out, because if he doesn't want to finish it, there's no penalty for it anyway. I mean, it's contingent.
It was owed, they
Yeah.
take the check and.
The bond got funded and he got his money from the county.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that it on the courthouse?
There was something else, but I can't remember.
If not, we have an extension agent update from Mr. Shaw.
Was contacted by Mike Hansen, he's the district director.
See, Bob.
Bismarck.
Bob,
He's filling in for Lynette till she gets her position refilled. But anyway, I guess they had one candidate who was ready to do an interview and he withdrew his application. So kind of back to advertising again. He said he's going to go to the NDSU. They have career fair the first part of February, so it's hoping to target some new graduates.
We'll get a freshie, huh?
Yeah, so well, that's where that's at, I guess.
Okay. I wonder if the surrounding counties have agents in place. Of course, they don't want to play ball, do they?
I don't know how many got filled. Did Steele counties get filled?
I don't know. Nelson's did.
I think it's probably just an ongoing process anyway, the way it's Solid Steel and the rest of them, they have an agent for a couple years and a year and then move on.
Well, same, how long do we have that Evan here?
Yeah.
It was only here 2-3 years.
That'll probably change with the downturn in the farm economy. There won't be as much need for independent, people working for the chemical companies. That was a big draw for a lot of them.
And a lot of young guys going home to farm.
Yeah.
So,
Okay,
remains open for now.
okay, thanks, Sean.
Thank you. Anything back to the courthouse, anything we want Ron and I to work on?
I guess we kind
I
of
don't know,
wait
unless-
for construction engineers and see whether we go for,
Unless somebody could talk to one of them guys on the building authority, but boy, I tried to talk to Ron Hoverson, and that was just fruitless. He didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah, we can't do anything more than offer, and we've offered everything that we can offer, and
Talking to the prior District 4 commissioner is maybe an option, but I don't know if it's an option for me, because I'd just get mad and he'd get mad. And
no, I think from that perspective, they're gonna do what they feel that they have the ability to do or not the ability to do, and we can do what we can do, but as I said, we can't step in and take control of this thing.
is there some way, I should call the Bank of North Dakota and see if there's a way to compel them to comply with the contract.
That's the other thing that should be investigated, and was no completion date on that thing, and there was no final inspection or nothing.
No, I know,
like
but
that.
there is a bill that's not been paid.
money's available.
And
If in fact it's their responsibility to spend that money, then somebody must be capable of overseeing that end. I don't know who it is, but I bet you my old buddy Al Wiseman at the Bank of North Dakota could tell me. Beck, I should say.
let me read this to you. And this is just a short synopsis. And the lease agreement between the building authority and the county, parentheses lease, was enacted May 1st, 2013. The lease does not specify any date of occupancy of the building by the county. Rather, the lease states that it begins on May 1st, 2013 and continues until May 1st, 2033. It is understood from the lease that the date of occupancy for the county commences when the building is capable of being occupied for its purpose. Now, this letter was written a while ago, and this was this was over an argument about who should pay for the outstanding dollars that were out there. And this implies that, again, it is understood from the lease that the date of occupancy for the county commences when the building is capable of being occupied for its purpose. So if we're paying for the lease payments and we can't use it for its purpose, the other side has to be in default. And the other side's lawyer wrote this letter. This is from Grossman. Well, he didn't understand that it wasn't going to be occupied. He was arguing about how the payments were going to go. But so I think the very fact that there wasn't a date of occupancy, but he defined the date of occupancy, and he's their lawyer. pretty well makes the point that they're in default. Because we already know that we aren't in default. Hang on here. Do you remember when, and maybe you don't, remember when the Grossman wrote the letter to the Bank of North Dakota claiming that we were in breach of contract? The county? Well, they weren't so quick to send this to us, but when I public records request, the building authority, this is to Mr. Grossman from the Bank of North Dakota. Dear Mr. Grossman, your August 25th request on the behalf of the Griggs County Building Authority has been reviewed by our legal counsel. Under the terms of the lease agreement, section 5.1, an event of default has not occurred. At this time, no action is necessary by the Bank of North Dakota as a trustee. So if we have a project that's upside down in limbo, and there's two parties involved in it, and the one party's not in default, it's real simple math to figure out who's has the problem here, and we didn't even have to pay our lawyer to do it. Their lawyer did it for us and put it in writing. So that's, I agree. I think we should contact the Bank of North Dakota, because at some time, you have to reasonably able to figure that you can occupy that building. And when you can't occupy it because bond funds, which the Bank of North Dakota is responsible for ensuring are spent correctly, are being held up, I think they're in fault.
Okay, I'll call Al Weisbeck.
Again, there's got to be a fix to this, and I think the fix is that they're going to have to kick in some money from some other source. That's all there is to it. They funded this thing and they came up short, and they're going to have to pay the cost of that.
Well, we'll find out who has to pay the difference. That should be done after
After the fact, right.
after we're in the building. We're not going to figure it out now, and in fact, we won't know what that number is until after the building is finished. So why fight about it today?
Right, and we have done our due diligence. We have mitigated the loss. That's the first. That's the first thing you have to do in a situation like this is not let the event cause more damage. And we are mitigating the loss. We're paying our portion of it. They're not. If you have the ability, you have to mitigate. They have the ability. The money's sitting there. They're not mitigating. So we'll see.
Okay.
I'll move we adjourn.
It's been moved by Sean that we adjourn. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Seconded by Dale. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Meeting adjourned at 4:06 p.m. this 23rd day of January, and the next regular meeting will be on February 6th at 1 p.m. The following meeting will be February 20th at 1 p.m.